We'll go ahead and get started. Go ahead and get served up and we'll just get started and let us begin with the designated sign area discussion, and that is Selby.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 1 second. I'm getting set up on Zoom.
Okay.
We can see you in all the places.
Let's turn my video. I co-host the Zoom webinar with. I'm off. We got no feedback going on.
I don't think so.
Sure. All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, yeah, there you are. You gotta turn your volume down. Oh, yeah.
All right. We're good.
What is this go call? Which is? Seal. So. It'll come off that one. Okay, tonight. Appreciate it.
Going to, I can share my screen.
Organization.
Just pass along.
Yeah, you pass along.
Beat. Oops, not like that. Are you in the study session? Oh, not yet. What is? Beat tab it, or beat, yeah, so just go down.
So let me share my screen. Lose you.
It's an invitation for the city council, for an event at High School Creek this week.
All right. And we still have some folks getting some food, but I'm going to go ahead and get started in the interest of time. So we were asked to add to study session topic tonight, a change to our designated sign areas. As a reminder, last summer, council asked for staff to bring recommended changes to our code specific to political election campaign signs, which we did, whereby we disallowed them from the Highway 2 right of way because it's contrary to DOT regulations. And we also required signatures of the abutting property owner for any political election campaign signs placed within the right of way. Council said or asked staff to review alternate designated sign areas along Highway 2 where political election signs and other signs defined in the DSA portion of the code could be placed. So in your packet, you have the existing DSA section of the code, as well as some suggested areas, locations that could be created as designated or be designated as designated sign areas. I'm going to go through this presentation, but then our city attorney is going to share some new information that I was not privy to before I prepared this. So what we did was staff was looked at areas around town where it was city-owned property, but outside the DOT right of way. We also looked at some areas in the residential districts that might be appropriate for designated sign areas. So they are all listed in your packet, and I'll show them on the screen here. Andrea is actually the one who volunteered to go out and take the photographs. So this shows a portion of city-owned land that is adjacent to the U.S. Forest Service property. So there are a couple different angles that show this stretch of land. We own quite a bit of this long linear stretch between the U.S. Forest Service property and Highway 2. That is our land. So that's what these 3 photos show. 4 photos.
Sorry.
We also looked at a location near the pool. Does not look like there's a suitable location given the current vegetation near the pool. So I also asked Andrea to look at the City Hall property. That'll come up. This is Chumstick that you're looking at here. This is close to where the new entrance to the Leavenworth Meadows apartment complex is going to be. So this will change. That road is actually going to be cutting a little bit into the hill that we're seeing up here. But in the interim, until that is done, this is an area of city-owned property where we could potentially designate as a designated sign area. This is the corner, council also recommended someplace near the schools. I think the schools would be okay if we, didn't require signatures for political election campaign signs. But it's pretty tight between the right of way and the school property without being on school property. So this little corner at Pine and Titus is right. And this, so that's a couple, maybe this grass strip right here between, Pine and the multi-use path would be more appropriate than this little sliver where the fire extinguisher is. And then this is further up Titus, next to is this the high school or the middle school? The middle school here. So that was another suggested area. Then we have the property in front of City Hall. That one didn't get turned over.
Sorry.
That's okay. They can all visualize what this area is spread out there. Then we also looked at the area in front of the fest hall. Because we own the fest hall property. This is actually, this is P1 or Asgard. I'm gonna start calling them by their names and not their numbers. It's Asgard parking lot. And then the Osborne Elementary property, again, this is city-owned property, so we were considering that grass strip in front of the building as another potential area to designate for signs. So again, these aren't just for political election campaign signs. If you read through the DSA, yard sale signs, et cetera, there's all kinds of signs that people, reasons that people could put up signs in these designated signage. So that is the essence of my presentation. Open up to questions from the council and a statement from our attorney.
I'd love to know what our attorney wants.
I think it'd be great to hear from our attorney first. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so I'm frequently the right one get in these conversations, and so I'm not see what I am tonight again. So starting with the rules, cities can't prohibit the placement of temporary signs, which is what we call political signs, in the planting strips and parking strips in the right of way. However, they can and do tend to require signatures from the adjacent property owners when allowing placement of those. Most sign codes do in fact prohibit the placement of temporary signage on public property, and that includes the parking strips and the planter strips adjacent to public property. And the reason for this is because state law prohibits the use of public facilities to support or oppose ballot measures or campaign measures, which temporary signs, also known as political signs, are inherently supporting or opposing campaign or ballot measures. So for that reason, most sign codes do prohibit placement of temporary signs on public property. So this conversation does involve the placement of political signs on public property, which would, in my opinion, most likely be contrary to state law. So I know that's a very brief and direct statement, but that is my opinion, that probably would violate state law.
So all those places we just took a look at, that would be prohibited?
They are all public property, and therefore it would likely violate the prohibition on use of public facilities for campaign or ballot measure purposes.
Well, that shortens our conversation, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Now, were some of those just right of way alongside, like,
Those were all, no, they were, because what I was asked to do was evaluate areas where it'd be outside of DOT's right of way.
right?
But that wouldn't require an abutting property signature. So we could designate these things, I thought, till I found out it was contrary to state law, without the requirement of a signature.
So we're left with anything that is abutting somebody else's property and needs a signature is what we're left with.
Yep.
It's
Sounds like,
pretty typical. In signs.
Right,
That's
no,
what-
I know, we were just trying to find some other places that didn't require a signature and.
So does that lead us to just eliminating this entire section of code? Other than saying you would just have to get a signature in order to have a political sign.
You mean,
I mean, what-
deleting the entire designated
all of
sign
the
area section?
designated sign areas.
There, when I was reviewing the code, they are all on, within the right of way. Which is state or city property, right?
Public. Right.
So is it?
Do
Go
other,
ahead.
do other communities do this across Washington where there aren't political signs on these lands? I mean, what's typically done in small towns in Washington?
So typically you will see, prohibitions again on placement on public property, which does tend to include the parking strips and planter strips. And you'll see them in private planting strips and parking strips, right? So most of the signs that you see are actually in private planting strips or private parking strips.
Okay,
And the reason that I say they're private is because right of way is an easement, right? Most right of way is not owned in fee, it is an easement. And so technically the adjacent property owners are the owners in fee of the parking strips or planting strips. The city has an easement, a right of way easement over that property, but it isn't technically the city's in fee. We control it and regulate it, but it's not ours. So that's why you go and get the adjacent property owner's permission to place temporary signs there.
well, so this is for political signs, but could we use those places for, community events or school events or yard sales, or is there anything telling us we can't do that in those spaces?
You mean to allow placement of those types of signs?
Yes.
So, I'm going to tell you no on that. And the reason is because, what you're talking about there is content-based regulations of signs. Post a case called Reed versus Gilbert, which I believe was in 2015. Cities are not allowed to regulate signs by content. And so if you went in and changed your regulations to reflect that these things are allowed in this area, but these other things are not, then you're regulating the signs based on content as opposed to the way that we're allowed to regulate things, which is calling them temporary signs or, regulating them by their shape and size and whether they're on or off premises to some extent, things like that.
So I think what you're saying, I just want to be clear. I think what you're saying is there's really not a good legal way to allow any signage in these areas, no matter what it's for.
Typically, cities will prohibit it.
Okay.
Because that is the safest route to take.
Huh, okay.
And so you're saying that my yard has big rocks on the property line. And so in front of it, there's quite a space before you get to the street. So you're saying that that is city property, or you're not saying?
I'm saying it's part of the right of way, assuming that it is part of the right of way. But that right of way is not typically owned by the city in fee simple, the way that you own your property. It is typically an easement. And so the public has an easement in perpetuity over this area, but say if the city were to vacate it, it would go back to you, right? So it's, I suppose technically your property, although the city has this easement over it that allows it to control the area.
So signs can be put there.
With your permission. That's where we're saying.
That's the with your permission part.
That's
Okay.
the your permission in the right of way, because then it's not on city property that we were trying to designate city property that could be. used.
Okay.
So most of the time, when cities put that requirement in place, it's because oftentimes the adjacent property owners don't appreciate 20,000 political signs covering their planting strips, right? And so we ask the public to be respectful and request permission to place their signs.
And the signature you're talking about is their signature on the sign?
I think your code does have something about the adjacent property owner's signature on the sign.
On the sign.
No kidding, on a sign.
I think that's what your code says on the back of the sign.
Wow.
Well-
That's kind of cumbersome.
Well, I want to thank the people that worked on this. I think Anne was one of those folks and we appreciate it. I appreciate it. I didn't know any of this, and it seemed like nice in such a small town to be able to have political signs that were, or other signs, you know, so you could sort of see what's happening. But anyway, thank you.
Would that be for the fire department too, if they were running a levy?
Yeah, we just have to be on private
It's
property.
any sign. Any temp.
Anytime,
sign,
no matter who it's from.
No matter who or what. They can go in the right of way if the adjacent property owner agrees to it.
That probably should be made real public.
We did have that issue with some of the, I think it was Cascade Medical last year. Andrew did a lot, was it Andrew or Amy that did a lot of the, Amy did a lot of the outreach too. So once we cleaned up all the city council campaign signs and the mayor campaign signs, we had to then go and enforce the House Bill Commissioner signs.
So my question would be, at the corner of Spur and Titus Highway, where big traffic jams are, that triangle. That, you can't put anything there anymore, but everyone's been putting a sign there.
That was designated, that was one of
Yeah,
our
it was a
designated,
designated.
and now it would be only with permission of the abutting landowner.
Is that Corey or who? Do we know who owns
No,
that?
it's Tom.
Tom Lynn is on
Oh,
the
he bought that corner.
one side,
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
Okay,
Well, to be clear, there's two ways we could do this. One is with permission of the landowner, and the other is just say that you can't do it at all. Is that right, or I'm not understanding?
No, you can't prohibit it.
You can prohibit it on public property and the, rights of way adjacent to public property. But you can't prohibit it in front of private property, right? Even though it's still on public right of way. The reason that's permissible, again, from my perspective, is because it's really the city has an easement over that.
Oh, like Sharon's question.
Ownership and fee.
Okay.
So like, this property is city property. Right?
Yeah.
And so out in front of that is city owned and fee simple.
Sure, I get it now.
All right, doesn't sound like we can have it. So maybe we'll bring a,
We've got a code amendment ahead of us.
we can just remove that as part of our code
Basically
cleanup.
just scratching most things and maybe just dumping what's allowed, just back with all the other signs that we regulate.
Nice try,
Thank you,
but
Nikki. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
you.
yeah,
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
all right, our next is RH2 is gonna walk us through a study update on our replacement feasibility.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll provide a brief introduction. So Adam Knapp is with us this evening from RH2 Engineering. So real briefly, the Icicle Work Group funded a series of early action items to further municipal water system in terms of resiliency as it pertains to conservation and just drought resilient and drought impacts. So a couple projects that they funded was one, a leak detection survey, which was completed in 2022. A utility rate study with regard to water only. That rate study is underway. Conservation and drought plans specifically, and RH2 is working on that as well, and that's currently in draft form. And the large project that they funded was this municipal water source replacement feasibility study. The intent of this project is to see if it's feasible to transfer our surface water rights up the Icicle to a second well site. So that will transfer in groundwater to surface water, so there's some flexibility there, and that, then I'll turn it over to Adam to take it from here.
I'm working on
How?
it.
Who should I ask to go to the next one? Okay,
You don't have a clicker.
I don't have a clicker.
I can
I
get
can see
there
like-
Click.
Oh, yeah, we need a PowerPoint for that. If you have it.
It's okay,
Yeah.
I should have prepared that.
That's okay.
That's on-
Okay, so I can just scroll.
okay.
I'm sorry.
What? You can't make it the big screen. Okay.
Oh, I can do
Control.
full size, yeah. Okay, there you go.
So, yeah, introduction, you want to go there? So, the whole project kind of starts, the way we outline how to approach this task is really
The vast majority of the time and energy was spent just processing data, finding and processing data. So there are some reasonably decent hydrogeologic studies in the valley here. The city has had a few done on its existing wells, well field, the hatchery and USBR, there's that work. Really complex. That complex. There about hatchery. In order to augment those kind of two main study areas, we looked at the Department of Ecology maintaining the database of all wells through state theoretically back to when wells first became a thing. And keeps track of certain attributes associated with that. But it's typically the drillers, it's always the drillers that fill out that documentation and just file it with state. That is where the art of well log interpretation comes in. So the idea of trying to sort through, I think there was 500-ish well logs in the Leavenworth Valley. And if just to step back a little bit to kind of orient you guys. The Leavenworth Valley is a glacial trough of a valley. It was carved by the last glaciations, fairly deep compared to the rest of the Wenatchee Valley. And then filled with glacial and alluvial sediments as the glaciers retreated. So your bedrock bound on top of all sides. It's a nice little bathtub. You can even see bedrock, boulder bend. That's why it's called boulder bend, right? So there's not a whole lot of point. There's not a lot of large aquifer potential downstream of that. So we're really focused in on ski hill to the hatchery area and gaining wall gain. So within that area, there's about 500 wells. And just spend a bunch of time processing and looking for key attributes. Well, the didn't find water is probably the most critical. That a no is a very firm negative data point, which is good to include in your data set. Depth of bedrock, and then aquifer characteristics, which are pretty big. Individual drillers call neighboring wells vastly different things. And then the pump test data, which is really where the rubber meets the road, so what is down there. Unfortunately, that is very highly dependent on how we complete the well, both from a construction and a development standpoint. And most people drilling wells aren't even maximizing the amount of withdrawal out of a well. It's really just the city, the hatchery. So as we started going through some of the data that's out there, we started putting together few maps. I'll scroll down to the next one. So just a little perspective, your guys' service area. Later. Laser plan. Okay, and these are bases. Okay.
It's the little things.
Yeah.
On the right is your geologic map, and all of the pretty purple colors are igneous and metamorphic associated with your, cool alpine terrain. And all the stuff in kind of green, out here on the outside is your sandstone formation. You can see from here all the way down to Apache. And then these are our Antofagasta deposits. And this is kind of a steering way they got deposited on the side of the mountain. Wow. So one of the other very tricky things is actually locating where the wells are. The well bogs often have township section range. Sometimes they have GPS coordinates if they're newer. Sometimes they have addresses or just a name of a person. Ritzy, well, great, where this fits. So we did spend some time trying to accurately locate those and really put preferential modeling on this. On the red ones, if we felt like we could accurately locate the parcel, the blue ones we could not. A little bit less data quality there. Mapped out the groundwater surface elevations over here on the right, and that is plays into what Tom said about your water rights and being able to transfer in surface water rights. You have back up here, a nice pull down to a second well source. In order to do that, you have to be tapping the same body of public water. And ecology is in your case already effectively made the determination that groundwater in your existing well field here and an Icicle Creek water is quote unquote the same water. It's come from the same, they're hydraulically connected. Probably not gonna be the case for anything on Ski Hill, but really from town up north. Most of the groundwater flow is down towards town, so it's being recharged from precip that occurs up on Tumwater Mountain. Probably not the same body of groundwater. So we really kind of shied away from looking up here, even if maybe down here in town, you could make some argument, or you could maybe make an argument that if you just viewed it at Boulder Basin, you're in the same body. It worked out nicely, but we weren't taking it. So depth of bedrock, a little bit of an aquifer up here, a little bit kind of through the middle of the valley. It's fairly deep down here. This is your existing well field again. This would be like the palm property over on the Slug Note Road. And then very deep out here by the hatchery, they have the space. Moving over here to the right, it's again, interpretation of the drill log, but how, not just how deep the sediments go before they hit bedrock, but how thick are the sands and gravels. So, there actually is a fairly big one up there on the Dutch Ranger Road-ish area. Your guys is moderately thick, that your existing wells are completed in, and actually very thick projects down here.
So Adam, you're saying that where it's thick, that's not the aquifer, that's the formation of the rock that's thick?
So depth of bedrock. So this would be how deep to bedrock. So some of that material is going to be silts and clays. Can't pull much water, any water out of silts and clays. But it does give you oftentimes the most pumping capacity because your hydraulic grade, the deeper you can put your pump, the more drawdown you can have theoretically. With all other things being the same, you can have more capacity. So it's still an important thing to look at, but it's not as critical as your aquifer thickness or as the next slide gets to how wells actually pump. So this is just how much the drillers report well capacity. You guys are a hot spot, the hatchery is a hot spot, there's not a whole lot outside of that. Another way to look at capacity, because if we're looking at truly the aquifer and we're trying to remove variability of well size and construction details, then we kind of switch to a different metric called specific capacity, which just looks at your withdrawal per drawdown, per foot of drawdown. So you can imagine the harder you're withdrawing out of a well, if the aquifer is not very productive, you're going to get pretty steep from the depression, the well through and the drawdown. It's really going to take a lot of effectively head differential that you're creating to use the flow at the bottom of your well. Again, hotspot being your well field and the hatchery well field, and a pretty decent warm, like where you're at East Level. So we did identify, based on all of that kind of hydrogeologic mapping, some key areas over here on the right. We kind of looked at the golf course, broke it up into 3 different areas. Enchantment Park, Wicko property over here. So one of the other things that we looked at is non-hydrogeologic characteristics. One of them being wellhead and wellhead protection areas. Could you acquire enough space without to protect a wellhead area, potentially a well field, not just an individual well. So we did look at some of the larger undeveloped properties. One of the things we went out and did an initial survey of the golf course, and the left here is black area. was what appeared to be a legacy landfill material inside of the river. And there is some, historic water right change documents that actually indicated that that is a reason why your well field is now down here. Was moved because of that landfill. So that kind of rules out golf course north and Hague. Golf course south could still potentially be an option, although the golf course on the existing golf course doesn't seem to be overly excited about that. Shannon Park, we think you can squeeze a little well in right here. So that's the one for sure spot right now. We have kind of all the necessary checks in order to go out and drill a test well, but granted, you guys have hopefully 3 test wells, so you'd really like to line them all up the same. Right now, we're pursuing these 3 on the east side of the river. Unsuccessfully at this point.
There's a private property and they're not interested?
Right.
Correct, but I will state we've made some forward progress on the Fromm property, but it's been very slow, and my confidence level is quite low that will reach.
Having access?
Yeah.
To be honest, there's not a lot of reason for them to want to participate in.
Not much in it for them.
No, there's really not, right?
Yeah, they're not interested in selling.
Yeah,
That's the key.
And as Paul alluded to, you can't offer them the moon and incentivize it that way because you're bound by what fair market value, right? The city. So it's a slow process. Hopefully we can make some progress. It may end up just trying to find another one we could squeeze in here or trying to find 2, maybe really. Upset.
So when you lay all these maps on transparency over each other, right?
Correct.
It highlights just what you're saying. These essentially, these are these are the hotspots.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this presentation, it would be 1,000 years from now when it would change and it would have, give a different presentation a long time from now, or in 10 years it might change, or this is like, this is it. This is the foreseeable opportunities that you see.
My takeaway is that the geology isn't gonna change. Those hotspots, the best spots are always gonna be the best spots unless another data point indicates something else, which is why you drill test wells. Is it may look really nice. You may drill a test well and I'm not gonna read one. You may drill one or someone else may drill one on a piece of property that right now doesn't look very good and they could hit a gusher. You're all bound by your data points, really. Well logs and drillers. Is not a great data point. So you really boil down to where does it make sense for the city to have one? And there seems to be a fair bit of hydrogeologic evidence that in this area, you stand a pretty good chance of running into an aquifer of sufficient size and capacity for a second source. In the future, if you couldn't get access, test wells weren't as productive, theoretically, the city could still pursue a second source with just a much more broad scale. Instead of having all of your 3 wells in a little tiny spot right here, it might require multiple wells for a bigger area, pulling a much lower quantity out of each, but in some actually, meeting your threshold for a second.
so right now we're running, we can't be. Where our wells are near the golf course, we can't drill another well there?
Should, you would beg the question, is that a second source? How much additional value does that really provide the city? So it provides you some from a quantity of water, although every time if you're in a little spot, every time you withdraw from this one, you're also depleting how much you want to withdraw from this one, and the more straws you stick in that same little patch, at a certain point, it's a diminishing return.
Right, and so there's a ruling that says you have to find a second source,
You don't have to, no.
we recommend.
Yeah, that was the intent. Let's find a second source for just reliability standpoint. And you guys are not, the only ones pursuing this. There's a lot of other municipalities right now that are really looking at, second sources from a reliability, from a resiliency, from a just, hey, if something were to happen here, whatever it is, we'd love to have another spot that is intact.
You know, one example is when we rehabilitated well number one, we had to acidize the well to the point where it rendered wells 2, 3 useless, because we didn't want to draw the acid further into the aquifer. So we had to rely on a surface water plant during the well rehab process. So that's another example of the importance of having a source that's not connected.
In a perfect world, where would it be?
Yeah.
Is that the only property that they have? Is there some across the street?
Terrible pile. That's the only one I want to.
Can you say who's in charge out there?
There's a whole family.
I know, but is there somebody, is Pat like,
But we've chatted with Dave Burnett. He's married to a prom, and according to Dave, it's about 12 that have to collectively band together and be on the same page.
It's a big family conglomeration.
yeah,
They all have to be in agreement too.
All this chatted with the gentleman on the lookout.
Yeah, it was unsuccessful.
That's a big landowner in Chelan County.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And Chelan County has worked excellently with these landowners, and so I do want to give a shout out to Mike Kakuda. He helped quite a bit. He's quite frankly the only reason we've had dialogue with the prom parcel. And so he's indicated that the Wicko parcel is extremely challenging as well.
Adam, just north of the Shirley property is the city-owned boat launch property.
That looks like
Due to its real close proximity, is that a viable option for us?
it's a viable option. Let's say it's an opportunity. I guess we could call it viable. The whole intention of a wellhead protection area, you want to restrict access. Hard to restrict access to a well. Unless you don't want-
Well, the property is a lot bigger than just like the boat launch area.
You need a lot of space to.
Yeah, so just each individual well will be about an acre and. The 100-foot sanitary radius is a mandatory grounded. So if you draw your 100-foot radius around a well and stick it on that property, you can fit about one and not impact. Yes, have fallback plan, great.
Yeah, the-
Idealized location, problem.
We had any conversation with Shirley?
So, Mike Kakuda, Mike Kakuda is in the process of tracking down contact with the.
Okay.
We sent a couple
Shirley.
letters.
Yeah, we
Okay.
mailed two best.
That's him.
At the end of the day,
Irwin.
looking back at this now. And your assumptions in the beginning, is this about what you thought it was gonna be, or is there any way to say?
No, I thought it would be way more science-based and way less like, hey, man, can you please go on the property? I mean, the reality is you don't have unfettered access. You could do all the HD analysis you want everywhere, but you don't get to necessarily drill the best location. Either drill where somebody will house you to or city property. And I don't think I put enough weight on that initiative to how the project was planned.
Well, you mentioned something up on Ski Hill, right, Adam?
No.
Was that,
No.
that wasn't,
Because
that
it's a
was not an
different
option.
water.
Oh.
Yeah, it would be really hard, so there is one, there's one data point that skews it to look pretty decent up there, but I don't think it would pass the Tesla transferring the water rates.
Okay.
We have fielded some questions as to why we didn't look further down in the Shafton area. There are some fairly productive wells down there, but none of them are as productive as your existing well field, and the idea is just they're too far away. They're really long. You guys already lament your long transmission mains now. That would just be swapping one long transmission main for another.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the Enchantment Park area? Is it worth, you said it was kind of small. Is it worth it? And where is it? I'm trying to picture it.
be, right? So the kids will play areas of right by, right?
Oh, okay.
And there's like a little shack right about there, but I don't know. But if you're right about that little shack. Could we? If you were in jamming carpets, if you found your test well came back with a positive. Which there's, the city did drill a well, the eighties on somewhere on the Jamming Park property or. Here where the ball fields are, and it was not a successful, production well. Joke about this, but it's the only well log I've ever read, where the driller absolutely just lambasted the engineer for being an idiot on the actual well log.
Oh, that's fun.
But if we were to get a new test well and it were to pan out. There is space here, right? Potentially, we could look at. Ways to expand on that and mitigate further impacts to the existing, but thing is, there's just not much space that isn't already developed or isn't like pretty natural, like. What's not necessary and stuff. So it's really just a little.
And you need like a whole developed acre, is that what you're saying?
So again, it runs into the same problem that your boat launch does, of
Oh,
like
yeah.
trying to restrict access
Oh, yeah.
to a full acre of them. Effectively, I think if a lot of that acre was out in the woods with just some pedestrian trails, that's a pretty good restriction.
So what about Blackbird Island? If that's, I mean, that's pretty well restricted other than a few trails that go through there.
I was thinking that too.
So we get well drained,
Yeah, I don't know how you're gonna get anything out there. You know, we could probably do an exploratory well on like a helicopter. But you can't drill a production well with that. You're gonna get, you know, half the size, if not.
Can we come in by water from the boat launch?
Bargain.
That too.
So the production, the well drilling rigs that buildings are like, they're a semi, they're not a small.
It is, you're big.
So you have a stability issue out there as far as Blackbird Island.
Well, just bridges.
Yeah.
Oh.
bridge.
It's the.
Oh, that's
Don't
bridges.
have
If it was.
I should get a semi out there.
Maybe we could take out the adventure park and put it well there.
Before we get off this,
Oh,
this is
Sharon.
quite a problem to solve. What are the is number two the golf course south? Would that be your number two choice?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Golf course.
Golf course south is, I think, hydrogeologically, it's had a very good chance of panning out very well. Your separation is, you get fairways and think up here closer to where the high school goes and you get a fairways away. I think that walking the site, there's actually a good breast section right here. It's kind of out of the way that you might be able to. Golf course. It's simply kind of like the Blackbird Island, how to get it to a brick out, there are
Oh.
roads
Oh, I see.
that you can get a 60-ton drill rig out there.
Oh.
Right now.
I don't think we want you driving over the fairway. I just,
The greens are okay.
something's telling me.
Could
they're
you
not
float
like
it?
that.
It just becomes an 8-hole golf course, that's all.
Yeah.
No.
Just don't worry,
I know.
that is a solvable problem, right? Like you could get a gate for it, you could find it, you could just make them suck up, build it, put down a temporary road, take it back up, so way. But there's a lot of hoops to jump through and potentially there's some quote unquote easier sites that just require, you know.
I have one more question. I'm totally done. I mean, this is a hard thing to solve. On a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of our water, how critical is this that we have a second well? You know, like 20 years from now, 10 years from now even. How critical is it, Tom? Or either of you guys?
Good question. I mean, if this is deemed infeasible, what we would do is just improve the surface water plant. So we have the surface water plant as a second source. The
Oh.
second source we're referring to as an alternative second source.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, taking a step back briefly, this is, again, to see if it's even feasible to move away from our surface water.
And what's driving this is again, our work in the Icicle Work Group that's trying to maintain the stream flows there and knowing with climate change and everything, that water is going to be dropping. So if we could get out of surface and into groundwater completely, it frees up more to be in the river, which is one of the goals of the icicle work group. So it would definitely benefit us because it's not as expensive to run a well field as it is a surface. But it's also would benefit the icicles. So it would be a win-win if we could find it. But if we can't, again, we have the rights and we can still stay there, but.
Yeah, our service water plant is in need of substantial upgrade.
Right.
So it's a $10 to $15 million. Well, either way, it's roughly, whether we go to.
Or more, those were quotes we got earlier, but anyway.
The one thing I'll add to that is that a little bit of work we've done on the ground conservation plan does indicate that the city the city has rights to the icicle, they're not the most senior rights on the icicle. And it appears that twice in recent history, there's been a potential for legal availability concerns for the city to withdraw its full share of the icicle. Now, that hasn't came to fruition because the senior right holders haven't made a call on the city to stop diverting. But again, as climate change continues, that source is going to be to some degree more susceptible than non-aquifer flow. In the end, the water will come from the same place, the aquifer really
Right.
allows you to mitigate for those temporary short droughts, those really bad years. You have a bigger bathtub you're flowing.
And there's no fish in those.
Right.
Yeah.
So on the Shirley property, there's that tail to the north.
Yeah.
That abuts our boat launch.
Yep.
Have we talked to them about a potential boundary line adjustment to acquire a little bit of land there to be able to use?
We haven't made contact for sure. They did.
We
mail
sent
letters.
some words in the ether and they haven't.
Oh,
back.
okay. Would that be a viable option?
If we could snag Shirley's little tail there, you know.
It's like half an acre.
That would definitely be a viable.
Hmm.
I mean, when we're that close to the river, there are concerns still that they're mitigatable. You're not, they don't want you to put these full wells on the floodplain, but you already have them.
They're already in the floodplain for our main source.
Right, exactly. So, not all makes sense.
Would From consider having part of the golf course over there and they could just fall across the river? And
I don't.
get in a boat and go to the other
And go.
side?
So we should move on and look at your other,
I do like your
Portion.
creativity.
you're just doing this,
Yeah.
okay.
The drought conservation plan, there's some more work that needs to be done for the direction of the icicle work group. So
Right.
it's another update.
Okay. I'm sorry, I just don't get getting what we gave to the icicle work.
No, it's up to
50%.
All right, great,
You want?
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. That was very informative.
All right. Last item here is the noise ordinance and nuisance noise discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple council members brought up issues related to noise and asked for us to add this as a study session item, which we have done. The things that I recall hearing from council members was concerns over early start for construction projects on a holiday, and the issue of nuisance noise. Right now, when we look at our code, we measure noise based on decibels. What I did was I pulled together all the sections of our code that reference noise and provided them in your packet. And I invited our attorney, Nikki Thompson, who's with us here tonight, to lead this conversation about any potential changes that we may or may not want to make to our existing noise ordinances.
So again, I think that this is an opportunity for Q&A more than for me to present. I think Sylvie accurately described the two types of noise ordinances that we usually see. The first of which is based on the state noise control laws, and then the second is more of the public disturbance noise. The public disturbance noise ordinances, they tend to be more subjective and therefore a bit riskier. The decibel-based codes tend to be, they have more objective standard that we can clearly and readily identify. You do have, your main ordinance is in fact a decibel-based ordinance, which mirrors the WACs and mirrors the Ws and identifies zones where different decibel levels are allowed. I think the one thing I did notice in your code is that there is a definition of weekend that includes holidays, but then it doesn't seem to go anywhere in your code. Doesn't seem that there's a difference in Monday through Friday versus the weekend and the holidays. What your code talks about is really the 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. time frame. That doesn't distinguish between holidays and weekends. So if that was something that you were interested in talking about potentially changing, I think that is something that could easily be accomplished within the code here that you had in 930. And because it's already defined, it is kind of interesting that it's not already in the code. So if you're interested in addressing that, that would be great opportunity to do that.
What number was it again?
So this is under 9.33, your public disturbance noise regulations. And this has the decibel levels identified. You have residential, you have commercial, and you have industrial levels, and it's different for every zone. There are time restrictions where you have to be at either lower decibel levels. But again, it's really focused on that 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Limitation timeframe. And it doesn't have anything about holidays or weekends. So I have other clients that have done, saying, okay, well, on the weekends, which include holidays and under your code, you can't start your work until late. And you need to be done before 9. So maybe that would be an idea for you to consider, saying 9 p.m. to 8 a.m. on the weekends and holidays. That's a little bit different from the 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. on the weekdays.
What about just restricting construction on major holidays like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's? Like you don't work on, you're not allowed in a residential area to build a house all day long. Unless there's some kind of incredible emergency. But like, so that space of time, at least, or not till noon, that time is protected, and the residents are protected from somebody slamming away at 7 o'clock in the morning. Because that's where that originated, was I got a call from somebody who got, that happened to them at 7 o'clock in the morning on Thanksgiving.
So off the top, my recommendation would be to look at restricting timeframes as opposed to activities, because you are then looking at restricting somebody's ability to make a living, right? And I think that could open a door to claims that maybe you don't want. I think it might be better to consider the timeframes that you don't want to hear that noise in.
So instead of saying all day, you just say till noon, like 12 o'clock?
Or not saying construction. You're saying, you're identifying it's just a type, a source for that.
So don't do that.
Don't do that, limit it by time and limit it by decibels, whatever objective.
Like my neighbor's a woodworker, and so you're saying you can't run his saw and cut wood
Right.
early in the morning on a holiday, and he's, you know what I mean, it's, disruption.
Can we call out holidays individually
Most-
instead of coupling them with the weekends the way it is in the code right now?
So I will have to get back to you on that question. I want to think about whether or not there's a religious connotation that happens there that I would like to think about further.
Or distinguish it like federal holidays or something like that, that we already recognize.
Let me get back to you on that.
Okay.
As to whether or not we should consider distinguishing holidays from.
Yeah. That's a tough one too, on a 3-day weekend, Memorial, Labor Day, Juneteenth. can't work.
But there's some
And
federal
there's a lot of federal holidays.
Veterans Day.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's-
I'm
yeah,
curious though, the exemption with the lawn maintenance, right, from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And what's the difference between, in my neighborhood, I swear, since it's been nice out, sparking the lawnmower up at 7 a.m. on a weekend, it's like, what's the difference between that and construction? Is there a difference between a lawnmower at 7 a.m. and a hammer?
It's all based on decibels.
Yeah.
yeah.
The lawnmower is probably not gonna be 60 decibels.
But there's an exemption, oh, I don't know. I don't know what the decibels are, I mean, I
I
can't
don't know,
say.
did you modify your?
We think.
But my point is, like, so, but there is an exemption for lawn care, right, from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Anytime. You can work in your yard. I'm just trying to differentiate, we talk about decibels. If that, just make sure that doesn't fall into that, because that'll be careful of.
Well, a couple things. One is I like the idea of limiting times. I think that's great. 7 is too early sometimes. And I like the idea. And I'm glad Zeke brought this up, actually. I like the idea of having it be later on holidays, how we designate what a weekend is and a holiday is. You know, we have to talk more about that. I mean, maybe it's 10 o'clock, 10 to 6 or something, you know. The other thing is, I don't know how I personally feel about, just because we're neighbors in close proximity, I'm not sure how I feel about only measuring decibel levels when there's whole other parts of the code that talk about noise in a different way. And I mean, a great example of that right now is what's happening with the Alpine Slide, where we're saying we only measure decibel levels, but hundreds of people are saying, I'm disturbed, you know, I'm disturbed by this noise and it's in the code. How come that doesn't matter? So, you know, I would like to have more of a conversation about that too, I think, because people can identify really nuisance noise and the decibels may not reach a level or even be measurable based on, you know, there might be no way to figure it out or enforce it. If his lawnmower goes on, we're not going to have someone run over there and measure it right then. You know, so I think there has to be a way for citizens to be able to register their feelings about noise other than decibel measures.
I just like to read you something on, you know, this is chapter 9.34. Disorderly conduct. It says 9.34.030 loud or unusual noise prohibited when it is unlawful for any person or persons within the corporate limits of the city to disturb the peace and quiet of any person, family, or neighborhood, or any public assembly by any loud or unusual noise. And then it goes down the list, and at point 3, it says yelling, shouting, whistling, or singing on or near public streets, particularly between the hours of 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. or at any time and place as to unreasonably disturb or interfere with the peace and comfort of owners or possessors of real property. Now, there's a time thing in there, but we could, you know, but anyway, that's the whole thing is talking about. It's not talking about decibels, it's talking about disturbing quality of life.
I think you're saying that that doesn't matter, that it's in our code.
I'm not saying that it doesn't matter that it's in your code. That particular code provision actually references back to your Title I, which identifies everything without a penalty specified as a crime. And so from my perspective, nuisance noise is not a crime, and it rarely is a crime unless it arises to the level of being so pervasive and repetitive and after warnings that it warrants criminal charges, right? But your code unfortunately has it identified as a crime right now. Which is perhaps why I wouldn't necessarily consider that to be the best code to use at this point.
So you're saying we shouldn't, it's not identified as a crime now, and we probably shouldn't do that, identify it as a crime?
In my opinion, that is excessive, yes.
Yeah.
Most nuisance codes do not automatically create criminal liability for a nuisance. It
Okay.
usually starts at the infraction level, civil penalty level, and then it'll move up to criminal if it is constant, pervasive after multiple warnings. But right now, that isn't how your code is structured.
I guess is there a way for a neighbor to say to another neighbor and report it to the city? I guess, I don't even know who you report it to, the police or the sheriff or the city. Is there a way in code that you can say, wow, this person's getting up every day at, 7 a.m. and starting their lawnmower, or whatever it is they do, or warming up their diesel truck and the fumes are coming in the house. It's really annoying. They're noisy and they're blasting their radio too. Is there redress for that?
I think your best redress is under 9.33, which talks about decibels and has that objective measurement in place. And that usually you do have either a code enforcement officer with a decibel meter, or you have a sheriff deputy that comes out with a decibel meter and measures the sound and then addresses the issue with the involved party.
I wondered if when contractors get a building permit from the city for anything within the city limits, that they have to agree when they get that building permit that you will honor whatever we've set up here, that you will not, between these hours on holidays, whatever those might be, Thanksgiving, Christmas and New Year's, which I think is bare minimum, but say it's just that on those 3 holidays, just as an example, that between these times, you agree not to do any construction and disturb the piece of the residence next to you, your building site.
So oftentimes you will see language that references the noise codes that talk about construction hours in conditions of approval on your permits. And so
I can speak to that. We currently do list this on all the building permits, the current code for the requirement for construction. So that is on every permit that we issue now. So if that code were to change, it would go on every building permit as a condition of approval. And they're required to keep that permit on site. And so the contractors need to be aware of all the conditions as well, whether or not they read them, somebody's signing that agreeing to it. So it is enforceable at that point.
So maybe you're saying it's already there, so this person who's building at 7 o'clock in the morning on Thanksgiving was violating that?
No, because we don't distinguish right now.
Right
Oh,
now, we don't distinguish. We put the current code as it is on every building permit. If we were to modify the code as you're suggesting, that would go on every permit as
okay.
well. So they
As
would
of
be
now,
agreed.
it's not there.
Yeah.
So right now it would be 10 to 7 daily, right? We're talking about maybe changing the weekend and holiday hours to a narrower window.
Yeah,
You're saying 10 to 7, you mean the quiet.
yeah, that's like 10 PM to 7 AM.
10 to 7,
Yeah,
right,
and-
not the work hours, right?
And Rona, the process is to call code enforcement to file your complaint.
Mhm.
And then they look into it and they reach out. With enforcement.
And they would also have to have some kind of that they're realize when they do violate that there's an automatic penalty. Right? You gotta have some enforcement with it. So if they're agreeing to those terms, they're also agreeing that, if you do this, this is $1,000 or whatever we determine.
Yeah, it falls back to what's in the code.
May I ask how many complaints code enforcement has had on holidays about noise over the past?
It's hard to know because we're not open
Yeah.
when it happens, so they'd have to be leaving a message and I personally haven't had a call, but.
I've never had any.
The only one I'm aware of is the one that Zeke brought up.
Yeah.
That they called and talked to you
They
about?
called me on Thanksgiving morning because they were disturbed. And I had to say, yeah, I agree. You shouldn't have somebody building a house at 7 o'clock in the morning on Thanksgiving.
But it was within the existing.
Yeah.
Right.
Hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Nikki, are you saying that as the current code as is right now, we would need to define what a legal holiday is and then go from there to modify change the hours?
So the holiday conversation, I would like to circle back to after I have a little bit more of a think on it. And whether or not I think there are issues that I haven't thought about yet.
Okay,
But holidays and weekends, certainly right now they're lumped together. And again, if you want to narrow that time frame, then definitely. we can do that.
okay. Thank you.
Do we address noise pollution in here, or is it the same thing?
noise pollution.
Yes.
I would say it's probably analogous to what we already.
Because, in listening to all the folks that came to the hearing and are being, basically harassed by noise, excuse me. I looked up noise pollution. It says noise pollution is human-created sound that has the effect of being annoying, distracting, painful, or physically harmful. It is a public health issue that's adversely affecting the lives of millions of people throughout the world. People continuously exposed to noise experience, elevated stress levels, mood swings, lost sleep, diminished productivity, hypertension, depression, and hearing loss. In children, it results in slowed hearing. And I felt that I have a problem with it.
The purpose of 9.33 in the code
Mhm.
is, the intent of the city council is to control the level of noise pollution. So that's the code that we're
Noise-
discussing
noise
is,
pollution.
is to address noise pollution.
Well, it seemed like noise pollution was affecting I don't know how many people spoke, 200 with letters and coming to the hearing, even though the hearing was, hearing examiner explained that that wasn't what the hearing was, but is there any recourse for people's, I checked to see if the adventure park can have a hearing, can the people have a hearing? But the answer was no. I just wondered about it. That was hard to hear, really hard to hear. But the noise is noise pollution for the folks that live in the area that are hearing it. It was hard to hear.
You ought to ask the question that you can't measure human screams on a dB thing. It's just not gonna happen, but they're still disturbing the neighborhood as how they happen. And one of my questions was, okay, so now it's not, right now at this moment, it's not in the code. Can we initiate that, put that in the code that, any business that initiates disruptive noises that impacts, it's something you can't quantify. But maybe there's a way we can find it, at least identify it, because it was a real issue for 200 people. And I think can't just say, well, sorry, doesn't register on a dB scale, so you're just out of luck.
Well, if I can, though, the reality is until the applicant decided he wanted to change things and move things and change hours and do all of that, we didn't have a lot of complaints called into City Hall. That's just a fact, okay? Since I've been mayor, we've had a lot more call in about the pool when they have their swim meets. They go 10 o'clock and later, there's a lot of noise. And we've had a lot of phone calls around that issue, much more so than the one that's being talked about tonight. So some of this is noise, and what is disturbing is in the eye of the beholder, much like beauty is, right? It bothers some, it doesn't bother others. So unless you have an objective way to distinguish, I think that's the problem you get to when it's nuisance is subjective.
The code,
There's three, a total of the most swim meets there are in the summer is 3.
I'm just saying what's
And
that's
this is every
generated.
day.
I'm just saying, but I'm just telling you what calls we've received.
So that's one indication, Carl, but that's not the last one.
I'm just,
Yeah,
just,
that's an indication.
I'm just
Right.
saying.
but your code, just wanted to point out, your code 9.33.045, content of sound. The content of the sound will not be considered in determining a violation of this chapter. The content of the sound, the source of the sound, is not going to be considered in determining a violation.
Then
What
why is
number
any of
is it?
this even in here?
9.33.45.
Why is any of this even in here then?
I didn't write the code.
Well, maybe we better strike the code. I don't know,
It's just,
well, maybe we,
Content would be
somebody should
limited.
encourage the
a
200
word
people
or
to
two.
call in and then.
Contact, is it a
Well,
motorcycle? Is it
regarding the,
lawnmower? Is it-
regarding the people that spoke about, I mean, it's good to talk about this in the context of the whole noise thing. Regarding the people that spoke about Leavenworth Alpine Park, some of them told me, and I had heard this before, that they were so discouraged because of what happened in the initial round of that, in the permitting of it, that they were giving up. And actually, strangely, after that hearing where, you know, there were the 200 letters and 50 people talked and all that, someone wrote me and said, and they were a downtown business owner previously, they've been in town for a long time. And she said, you know, I was so discouraged that I started looking at other real estate and I started thinking about moving because I feel like it just doesn't matter what we say. We're just not being listened to. So I think that if people are saying that, and they have for a while, but I was surprised to hear from her, I hardly know her. I think that that may be why when the floodgate opened and the city said, we want to hear from you, people are like, oh, good, we want to talk. We've been wanting to talk. So I'm not sure, Carl, that you're reading that totally accurately, you know.
I'm just telling you what
Right.
an objective, what we actually have gotten in complaints at City Hall. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, and I'm pointing
That's-
out that you did get a lot of complaints once that other situation.
Once it was approached that there would be a hearing, which again, that's, the city's not involved in that at all at that
Right.
point, right?
They're just gonna
Not a
base it on the
city.
code that the city's put out there.
That's true.
It's based on what was right in place and what, you know, what has been approved and all of those things.
It's based on the conditional use
The
permit that was
conditional-
granted
right,
before the project.
Right.
And the altering of that, we're not involved in at all. So, yeah. I think there are people definitely disturbed by that noise. All I'm saying is there's other noises that people get disturbed by as well. And how do you quantify or qualify? I also know there's some people who are disturbed by that noise who aren't neighbors to that place as well. So, you know, it's obviously not been a favorite for a lot of the community from the get-go. That's a given from that first hearing that was at the fest hall that went on. We know that.
Well, I would say this, that some of the, you would, to decipher what was happening there, I just don't think you can pass on those, you know. You have 200 people writing about it. I don't think you can just simply ignore and say, well, you know, you didn't start complaining until now. We had more complaints from the pool. And so there's not really much, you know, what do you want us to do? I just think some way we need to recognize that because that is out there. And part of our job is to respond to the community. If we can, you know, so I realize there's questions about the quality of what their complaints, how legitimate they are. But I also believe that a lot of those are legitimate, that the plane has disrupted their quality of life. So.
And all I'm saying is that you got to be careful that what was approved there, when it was approved and the conditions that were set, it was because it's a legal thing to operate there. What we did after that fact was make sure that we got zoning changed and things that wouldn't allow that to happen again. And all of those pieces. But again, you're operating within something that again was determined to be illegal use of that space for that purpose. How do you mitigate, again, without taking away what that owner was granted in that process?
Nick, you have a question for you. Is it within our powers to modify the code to restrict or to tell a business that they have to tell their customers that they can't go and screen?
So
Or to create this noise pollution? Like,
Careful with the pool. I mean,
we have to loop the pool now that I'm
Right.
aware of it. Now we're looping in some pool activities and I don't know what adjustment was made after those 3 swim meets. Maybe nothing to mitigate the noise complaints that were given there. Like this is a slippery.
I think we have to
Well, I
be
can
really
tell you a
careful.
lot of this code was from 2011. And it was all happening because of Oktoberfest and
Mhm.
businesses blaring music downtown.
This code is
That
fairly
people
new.
can hear all the way up the hillsides, louder than they can hear someone screaming at that end of town or that end of town, or the swim meet, which is in the center of town and emanates throughout.
Right.
So that is the caution right there, is how low do you go with your DBA?
Yeah.
And still let people talk. I think another thing that would be very interesting for you folks, because I remember that we had the sheriffs in here and they produced noise levels for us with the sound
Oh, that's
meter.
interesting.
And 60 is not very loud, 70 is not very loud, 80 is not very loud. And it's just amazing how these numbers are actually very low in nature.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Can Shane get his question answered?
So,
Well, I don't know if it's
Sorry to
an easy
say,
question to answer. to be honest with
I
you.
know, but it's interesting.
so you want to know essentially whether or not we can prohibit businesses from allowing screening.
Yeah.
Yes. Or creating noise pollution at some level.
So, I mean, that's already what we're trying to do here with the objective decibel-based restrictions, right? Saying if you are creating sounds that exceed this decibel level, then you are violating the code. Unless you have some sort of variance. When we are talking, again, we need to be careful because what you're talking about is the specific business that is generating some concern. Generally speaking, you're going to want to think about the community as a whole and what making these prohibitions will do to the other businesses around. And there may be noise that you think is tolerable that would fall within these prohibitions. And you want to be very thoughtful in analyzing what would be impacted in trying to address a problem that you see as egregious at this time, right? You want to think about what else are we going to impact? And I think the pool is a really excellent example of additional impact that may not be intended, right?
Maybe there's some kind of a thing that the Alpine Coaster people can buy where if you feel like screaming on the road, you have to press a button and it beeps or something. And your mouth is taped shut. I mean, you know, nobody would be screaming.
I did learn that the owner, and I didn't want to talk about a specific business as this conversation, because personally, I don't think that's fair that we're picking on a particular business.
I don't either.
But that, now that it was brought up, I will inform the council and everybody else that the owner of or the general manager of the adventure park is investigating noise abatement. And one thing they're looking at doing is planting trees in the most problematic areas along the course where they identify people scream the most. So what they're looking at is putting in a mix of cedar and larch, and they're talking 20-foot trees. So these are not expensive trees, these are mature trees they want to put in. Sorry, did I say these are not inexpensive? These are expensive trees.
Right.
I'm sure they're going to be expensive to install as well, given all the rock. But the owner or the general manager definitely heard the concerns and he's doing what he can to mitigate. Or this is an activity he is taking to try to mitigate this.
Good to hear.
Okay, that's great.
So,
Think so.
so circling back, is the direction then to come back with an ordinance that restricts the weekend and holiday? And then have a further conversation about the concept of holidays and whether or not you can distinguish between holidays and weekends and call out certain holidays.
I think I'd like feedback first before we move into an ordinance and potentially amend the code. I'd like to have a little bit more information from you on kind of what our parameters are with what we can and can't regulate. And maybe just some recommendations on how we could potentially tighten up our code that we currently have, since it hasn't been amended in quite some time.
Study.
Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki.
Thank you,
Do
Nikki.
we need a study? This is a real
Yes,
thing or not?
good start. It's always trickier. There's always more things that get wrapped up in anything you want to try to change. Okay, we'll take a break. Be back for our 7 o'clock.
8 minutes.
No, we all have to stand up.
Oh,
We all have to stand up.
Yeah. I was a good child. I know how to.
Call the Leavenworth City Council meeting to order for April 23rd, and we'll rise for the pledge of allegiance. Shane?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Sharon Waters,
Ann Hesper.
Zeke Reister,
Shane Thayer,
Rona Barron.
Travis McMaster.
And we have Clint Strand has been asked to be excused, once again dealing with issues with his wife. So I would entertain a motion to excuse Clint.
So moved.
second,
Moved by Ann, seconded by Zeke. All those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously. Move on to the consent agenda.
I have a few questions.
Okay, Sharon?
On the first page. Okay, on page 7, accounts payable. It's Osborne renovation topography or something like that.
Survey,
And drafting,
survey.
it's a survey.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. On page 9. Down near the bottom. Tokay cross connection training.
I can speak to that.
Okay.
So, Tokay is a software that we use in our water division. And it's a database related software that we use to track all our backflow testing and assets. So it's a cumbersome software that we periodically need training on. So this was a third party vendor that provided the training to our water division staff.
Okay, sounds good. Next one is on page 12. Put my glasses on. Osborne plans scanned.
Yeah, the architects, were looking for plan set. And, this was the cost to scan in a plan set that staff found for the architect for the project.
Okay,
I think it was from 1983 or so.
okay, and on the next page 13. What were the recycle shed improvements?
I can speak to that. So the recycling shed did not meet snow load in terms of building code requirements. So Ara Kelly, our facility maintenance supervisor, and his staff retrofitted the recycling shed to meet current snow load requirements.
Okay, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 improvements. Were those all 6 connected to the,
So Tall Builders is Marson and Marson. They were going to Marson's to buy
Oh, it's supplies.
supplies to do the actual improvements. Could have been screws, bolts.
oh, any kind of a thing like that? Okay,
Right.
because I didn't see a lot of improvements, so I was.
You're not gonna see increase in snow load, it won't show.
No, it doesn't. I
I
see
mean,
that.
cumulatively, you've got about $400 or so there.
Okay, my next question is right below that. What's the banner setup? The street supplies banner
So
setup.
Tom, this would have been your
Oh.
crew needing parts for the banners
Correct.
downtown?
Yeah, so the brackets break periodically, parts are
Okay.
needed, so that my guess is parts for the banner. Right.
Okay. On the next page 14. Park and ride restroom remodel, 2 different lines. And I just wonder what the park and ride restroom remodel was.
So that was so our facilities division, in partnership with Parks, they typically remodel a restroom every winter. And so they remodeled the parking lot restrooms behind Safeway.
Okay. And I think I just have a couple more. No, I don't. Wait a minute, what is this? No, you're good. Thank you.
Right,
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
moved by Ann, seconded by Zeke. All those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously. Next item is comments from the public on items that aren't on our agenda. Here, just give us an earful, now's the time. Do we have anybody on the,
All right.
Gentlemen here.
go ahead and come up and.
My name is Chuck Amstreet, I live at 268 Schultz Street. I'm here to request the city and the council address the complaints about the screening coming from the Adventure Park. I've written 200+ letters to the city in response to LAP's request to amend parts of the conditional use permit and presented at the examiner's hearing. Most of the resident complaints from the letters and presenters were about how the screening was affecting them. With the height of the coaster and the surrounding geography, the yelling and screaming coming from the coaster riders is traveling into the residential areas. City staff have been to Schultz Street several times because of noise complaints to record screaming coming from the Adventure Park. But readings have been below the 60 dBi set in the city codes. I don't think a debate is needed that screaming triggers our fear center and how it affects us emotionally. And it's not just one scream occasionally, it's multiple screams per hour from 10 in the morning till 8 p.m. at night. And in the summer, it's 7 days a week. And because of that, I've had to, on several occasions, leave my yard and go inside my house. Recently, on April 13th, two sheriff officers were walking Schultz Street. They talked with my neighbor and said someone called and reported screaming coming from Schultz Street, which they were investigating. Now that you've read and heard overwhelmingly from the community that the screening from the Adventure Park is a problem, it's time to start resolving this issue. Mr. Sutherland has read and listened to the screaming complaints from the residents, but only has brought the amendments to extend hours. What I see happening is that the city or city council requesting a meeting with Mr. Sutherland and discuss the Adventure Park's responsibility to come up with a solution on how to reduce the screaming from being heard by the nearby residents. Also, the hearing examiner's remarks at the end of the hearing indicated that there might be a need for an additional hearing to address the screening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Julie Hamstreet, also 268 Fulton Street. Thank you for the opportunity to address the council. I have been and continue to be concerned about the city's noise and nuisance codes and their enforcement, especially as it pertains to the Adventure Park. I know that you have read the letters and heard the constant airing of grievances by residents over noise pollution. So I'm not here to present any more of that. I am here to ask the city to step up and use its authority to protect residents from harmful nuisance noise exposure. According to the city's municipal codes, the purpose of Chapter 933 Public Disturbance Noise Regulation is to minimize the exposure of citizens to the harmful psychological and physiological effects of excessive noise. The Adventure Park required a conditional use permit because they were proposing a non-conforming use for that property. Their first application for the park was withdrawn after concerns were raised about potential problems of parking, noise, and traffic. So clearly, a noise issue was anticipated, and clearly, given the routinely expressed concerns of residents, the conditions of the CUP did not sufficiently address the situation. I cited a whole bunch of information from the noise ordinances that you all covered during your conversation on these ordinances, the sound ordinances earlier, and won't go back over that. But as a resident, it has taken some time to familiarize myself with the codes. So I was surprised to find that they also state, quote, at any time, the city may at its discretion require that the conditional use permit be reviewed by the hearing examiner, who will have the authority to revise the initial conditions of approval if need for mitigation is determined. And certain most residents of Leavenworth are not aware that this is the case, and I would be surprised to learn that the city has had, and would be surprised to learn that the city has had the authority to become involved in addressing the loud noise problem all along. Again, I'm here to ask the city council to step up and use its authority to protect residents from the harmful useless noise exposure of the Adventure Park. It is your responsibility to respond to your residents. And it is entirely within your power to require another public hearing, which allows the examiner to amend lapse permit to require noise mitigation measures if he deems that's necessary. Please take action.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Can we ask a question or just take? Can we ask a question?
Normally, we just are taking input at this time. These aren't items on our agenda, so if you want to bring something up later but we just want to give an opportunity for people to speak.
Yeah, it's just a clarification. I'll find out later.
All right, anybody else?
I'm Isabel Audi. I live on 253 Shoals Street, down in the middle of Shoals, and out the front window, you can see the Adventure Park. And when we're talking about screams and noise, I'm an elementary PE teacher. I am inundated with screaming and noise all the time. I can block out that. But at home in my yard, I don't want to have to. I am out playing with my daughter, doing gardening, and all I hear is screaming from the moment they're open until close. Easier to talk to kids. In March, when I was sick at home and wanted fresh air, I had to keep my windows closed because when it was open, screams were just filling my bedroom. Chuck brought up the time the sheriff came by to ask, was there any screaming going on here? When we were in the front yard unloading our car for the last hour. So no, we didn't hear that murder screaming. There's always that murder screaming going on. They're from simple wounds to blood-curdling screams where it can make your hair stand on end of what is going on. It doesn't look that extreme. Why are you screaming that loud? And does make us look up wanting to move elsewhere. Even though we put so much into our home and love our home, we can't enjoy our home. So we hope that the council will be able to use their power to enact the noise ordinances to provide incentives for the Adventure Park to help mitigate noise. It could be full face helmets, it could be closing the capsules, it could be education of what streaming does to the surrounding neighborhood. That these visitors are visiting our town, we can hope that they can respect the people that live here full time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else? Okay, anybody online? No, hand up.
I don't have anything else, but I would like to add that the reason we probably got so many calls about the pool is that the city owns the pool. People know to call the city. They don't call laugh because it's private business and there's nobody home. So that's just, that was interesting.
Our next items, we've got a couple of presentations we're gonna make, and I'll just let Representative Steele and Representative Gaynor know. We're going to pass each of these first, and then I'm gonna come out and give them to you and have a chance to shake your hands and do that, but first. And I also will tell you that you have to sit and listen to the whole thing being read by me. Because when I come over your way, I have to sit and listen as the things are read aloud, right? So it's only fair. So we're gonna do Representative Steele. I'm gonna read yours first. This is a resolution of the city council. And by the way, I'm doing it as resolutions rather than just a mayor's proclamation. Because it's the entire city and we're passing it all together to affirm it as a group, as a city, and not just as the mayor. So that's why I'm doing it this way. But a resolution of the city council of the city of Leavenworth, Washington, extending its appreciation to Washington State Representative Mike Steele for helping the advancement of affordable workforce housing in Leavenworth. Whereas the city of Leavenworth acknowledges the exemplary efforts and dedication of Washington State Representative Mike Steele, representing the 12th legislative district in advancing the prosperity and well-being of our community. And whereas Representative Steele has demonstrated outstanding leadership and commitment by leading efforts to secure vital funding for critical projects aimed at addressing the housing needs of our residents. And whereas Representative Steele played a pivotal role in securing that first 1 million from the state's 2023 to 25 biennial capital budget for Upper Valley Men's affordable rental housing project, thereby laying the foundation for expanding affordable housing options in our community. And whereas Representative Steele was instrumental in supporting the additional capital grant of 1.3 million in the current year's capital budget, a significant achievement that greatly benefits the city of Leavenworth. And whereas Representative Steele has consistently championed the expansion of workforce housing options above the historic area median income threshold requirements for state funding, recognizing the diverse housing needs of our community and advocating tirelessly to address them. And whereas Representative Steele's dedication to enhancing housing accessibility for all residents of the 12th Legislative District, including those with moderate incomes, reflects a profound commitment to inclusivity and equity within our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Leavenworth, Washington, expresses its deepest gratitude and appreciation to Washington State Representative Steele for his exceptional leadership and unwavering commitment to address the housing challenges faced by our community. Be it further resolved that this resolution be duly recorded and a copy thereof be presented to Representative Steele as a token of our sincere gratitude for his remarkable contributions to the city of Leavenworth and its residents, passed by the City Council of the City of Leavenworth and approved by the mayor this 23rd day of April, 2024. And I would hereby ask for a motion to approve this resolution.
Leavenworth City Council moves to adopt resolution 072024 in appreciation to Representative Mike Steele for its support of Leavenworth's housing needs.
Second.
Moved by Zeke, seconded by Ann and others. All those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Representative Steele. All right. And we also have Representative Gainer with us, and he has to also listen to me as I say all of this as well to him. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Leavenworth, Washington, to extend its appreciation to Washington State Representative Keith Gainer for his steadfast commitment to addressing housing affordability challenges in the tourism-dependent municipalities. Whereas the City of Leavenworth acknowledges the invaluable contributions and proactive efforts of Washington State Representative Keith Gainer, representing the 12th Legislative District, in addressing the pressing housing affordability challenges faced by our community and in similar tourism-dependent municipalities across Washington State. Whereas Representative Gainer supported both the 1 million in the 2023 and the 1.3 million in 2024 from the state's capital budget for Upper Valley Men's affordable rental housing project, thereby laying the foundation for expanding affordable housing options in our community. See, we get the fact that all of this works together, right? I mean, nobody stands alone here, and we appreciate you guys working together. Whereas Representative Gainer then has demonstrated foresight and exceptional leadership by sponsoring an operating budget proviso in Washington State's 2024 supplemental operating budget to fund a comprehensive study conducted by Washington State University. And whereas the proviso provides funding for Washington State University to investigate housing market conditions in tourism-dependent municipalities, identifying unique affordability challenges and exploring policy solutions to mitigate those challenges. And whereas the study will meticulously examine state and local government policies nationwide that are supporting affordable and workforce housing projects and programs in tourism-dependent communities, addressing critical issues faced by our city and similar locales. And whereas Representative Gainer's efforts also prioritize the examination of how that increased and how the increase in area median incomes correlates with the rise in housing costs statewide, ensuring equitable allocation of state housing program funds across all regions, with a specific emphasis on understanding the disparity between urban and rural counties, including our own. And whereas the study will further investigate state policies and regulations influencing housing costs, particularly in rural counties, and identify strategies to enhance the flexibility of local government revenue streams to support workforce housing initiatives, providing essential insights to inform future policy decisions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Leavenworth extends its sincere appreciation and gratitude to Washington State Representative Keith Gaynor for his visionary leadership and steadfast commitment to addressing housing affordability challenges in tourism-dependent municipalities. And be it further resolved that this resolution be duly recorded and a copy thereof be presented to Representative Gaynor as a token of our profound gratitude for his exemplary service to the City of Leavenworth and his residents, passed by the City Council of the City of Leavenworth and approved by the mayor this 23rd day of April, 2024. I would hereby entertain a motion.
Leavenworth City Council moves to adopt resolution 08-2024. Appreciation to Representative Keith Gaynor for his support of Leavenworth's housing needs.
Second.
Moved by Ann and seconded by Sharon, but there was a battle going on here, folks. So all those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously, and now I'm gonna come out. Now, come up here. Very Steele, appreciate you so much. I want to see that framed. Right like that. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you, Council.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Representative Steele.
Representative.
Now, let's do all three of it. Those here. No, we're not like you. You always make it say, oh, yeah. Okay. You can vote if you have anything, either one of you want to say, now's the time.
No kidding.
Well, I do want to thank you for the recognition of our efforts, but I will say that my, part, it's a team effort. And it comes from the bottom up. And so even the proviso that you're addressing here, it came like he initiated it. And then we refined it and got to the point where we were, but it was something that Representative Steele and I worked together on to make sure that it was there. And as I said, without collaborative effort, it wouldn't happen. So none of these things, they may have somebody's name on it, but they don't happen without hard work in getting others to work along with them. So I appreciate your efforts in bringing forward the idea. And, we're grateful that it was able to pass through the legislature and signed by the governor. So thank you.
Yep, thank you. And yeah, thank you.
I concur, we are very fortunate to live in a community, in communities that really care about our residents. And the 12th legislative district is very special in that we all tend to work together for the common good to find solutions. And I appreciate the innovation of Leavenworth in trying to solve this real problem that exists not only here in this community, but across the state of Washington. And so as we continue to have these conversations and you continue to advocate for your citizens, we hope to find real solutions that are going to be beneficial not only to Leavenworth, but to the whole Washington state. So thank you for your work. Thank you for your wisdom in this and your continued advocacy, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we appreciate you. And like I said, I know that oftentimes you guys don't get the good news and to get the affirmations and all they get the, I somehow I relate to some of that a little bit. So we want to make sure you also get acknowledged for the good too. So
Thank you.
thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you don't have to stay around, by the way. You don't have to stay around.
You might not have to think about a meeting.
Thank you, Blake.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Next is our public safety reports. And do we have Randy?
Randy's up.
Okay.
Good evening. How are you tonight?
Doing well, thanks.
So I don't have the call stats. The records personnel that does that had family stuff the last couple of weeks and wasn't able to get those yet. I don't expect anything different than normal though. I do have the hours. There was 820 city contract hours with 29 foot patrol hours. There wasn't a whole lot going on. You may have all heard recently about the another bomb threat that came in. That was just night before last, I think. The suspect wasn't too good at it. They targeted the Nutcracker Museum. However, they called Leavenworth, Kansas Police Department. So the area was checked. The owners of the business were eventually contacted. It was a computer generated voice this time, claiming to have some hostages that they were going to kill in 30 minutes and had a computer generated gunshot. So not much, unfortunately, to follow up on, but it was addressed, and they do continue to unfortunately target Leavenworth with these threats. The cameras were shut off for a time, and that was about it for recently.
Guess I'm concerned that, I didn't know anything about it.
No.
Anybody else? Isn't that kind of not a big deal, but shouldn't the council kind of know?
No,
How come?
but we let law enforcement determine what goes and when goes public and what goes public. Because something like this, the more publicity you give, the more you just encourage. And they knew, it was quite clear that the call came into Leavenworth, Kansas. It didn't come into ours. They're the ones that forwarded it to us. That was because of the Nutcracker Museum. They're the ones that called. So, it's only when there's credible threats that need to be addressed that they're gonna, but that's why we have the people that we have that are professionals at it to determine that, but.
Because we've been called before.
Oh, yeah.
I think
There
we should
was-
know. Even if, at least on after a fact, not, I mean.
Well, you're
finding out
hearing
now.
about it after the fact now. But
Well,
that's-
this is way after the fact.
I know.
It feels like. I'm
It
just saying.
actually just happened
Yeah, 2 nights ago.
It was
2 nights ago,
like,
and I notified the mayor literally that morning.
Can I ask you about that? You said they keep coming. Do you know who they is, or are you just speaking of those kinds of threats?
Those types of threats.
And in general, they sound pretty robotic or something. In general, you're not concerned about them to a large degree. Is that right? I just have never been able to talk to you about this.
Me personally, no, I've never actually been to a actual real one. I've been to several fake ones where we have to do stuff as far as clearing the area and then checking the area and going through that. There was one, I think it was before I started, so 30 years ago, where a local person put a pipe bomb underneath a patrol car at the Wenatchee office. But other than that, I'm not aware of any actual real ones. But unfortunately, we have to take it serious because it could happen. But I imagine there are hundreds of these around the country every day that are just called in. I don't know why. I don't know what kind of joy they get out of it. It's cost a local business. I heard up to $20,000 a couple months ago when we closed them down. They're just more of a pain than anything.
And it's not that they don't take them seriously from their side. It's just they don't go public with them because that only encourages that kind of.
Well, thank you for managing it and explaining that. Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions of Corporal Lake? All right, sir. Thank you, Randy.
Great, thank you. Have a good evening.
Yep. Mike Smith is here too.
I don't have anything that exciting.
Oh, no.
We did once take a call into the station for a gas leak on Ash Street, and then we got to Ash Street and realized that address wasn't in there. They were from Leavenworth, Kansas. We got to reverse that. We called the station one in
Back
there
in Kansas,
and they responded. Okay, so and kind of the general stuff, our community chipping program has been going on since April 14th and is going to run through next week. Again, if anybody needs something chipped, info@chelanacreek.org and get that done for you. We're continuing our outreach and planning for the HMGP, the Hazard Mitigation Grant for the Upper Chumstick. We'll also be starting in early May, an egress fuel clearing project along the Chumstick Highway around milepost 11. We shouldn't disrupt traffic very much if at all. It's going to take around 3 weeks to complete the whole thing. That's in cooperation with the Chumstick Wildfire Coalition. They received a small grant through Firewise to fund part of it, and then the fire district is going to kind of pick up the back half and make sure that everything that we want to get done gets done. As far as our training, our volunteers they're taking their last course tonight, so they'll get their initial red cards. That's for our new firefighters. Everyone else has finished their refresher training. We just have, all we have left is a live burn that'll happen in May. Our CHS cadet program, they prep for a live burn on Rattlesnake Hill behind the high school. We're also planning to burn that in mid-May. We received a lot of assistance and, cooperation from Cascade School District on that as well. As far as response, we responded to 174 calls, so far as the 17th. That's a slight decrease, from 200 at that time last year. But we're seeing that number start to that discrepancy start to close in, and catch up. But we are seeing, fires popping up all over the county, and Douglas County. In this one, we had a working brush fire in Shafton earlier that week. We actually had one over the weekend, up at, it wasn't us at District 6, but at Camas Creek, and of course we sent, 2 or 3 apparatus up there. It ended up being a little over an acre in heavy timber, and they ended up, DNR responded along with us. I think altogether they said there was 37 firefighters on scene when they finally got it controlled. So again, that was an escape burn pile. Unfortunately, it's that time of year. I know everybody's probably heard that we're in a drought that was declared. It doesn't necessarily look great for fire season, but there really isn't a need to panic or anything like that. A lot can go on in May and June. If you have a mild May or June, we get some precip. Things might not be as dire as they appear now, but obviously we're going to prepare for the worst and hope for this. Do you have any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
What is a good intent call?
A good intent call is basically, it doesn't quite fall in like EMS or like a commercial alarm or something like that, but basically someone called for some type of assistance that didn't fit in the other call categories. And so we had good intents. We went to help somebody with something. It could be a public assist or something like that.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right. Thanks, Mike. All right, next we have a presentation from the Greater Leavenworth Museum. Matt Cade is going to enlighten us, and he brought a whole contingent.
Three people.
No.
And a concerned citizen here.
Yeah.
But I'm Matt Cade, I'm the board president of the Greater Leavenworth Museum, which is operating. Oh. Thanks.
That's not the right one.
Is this the right one?
That's not the right one.
No.
He's looking for your.
I got it.
Oh, just.
Sorry. Thought I had it.
You do a chicken dance?
Yeah.
Check, 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 check.
I know you did.
Well, I gotta get it going here first. I don't know what's happening. Oh. Okay, let's try it one more time.
Yeah, looks like
Should
it.
be that.
It's there.
I think you're extended.
Oh, maybe that's. the problem. There we go. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, just a sec. Just a second, just a second.
Okay, okay. Let's see if it's working.
Is the timer on?
Yeah, right, yeah. right.
Timers.
Oh, sorry, time's up.
There you go, now you can have it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so you know, my name is Matt Cade. I'm the board president of the Upper Valley Historical Society, which operates the Great Leavenworth Museum. And tonight, Christy Bose is our board secretary. She's in attendance, and Bob Booker, a supporter of the museum and certain citizens. So he's a voting person. So he live one right here. So,
Believe me, I've already identified him.
I want to, I've been before the committee, council members before to thank the city for the support, and this is another one of those things. We can't thank you enough again, because we're still here today because of the city support. So that's that was the thank you right there. And then, but these two folks here are happy visitors to the museum, and they were actually Natalie here. Nelson was our 13,000th visitor for this last year. So year before we had 10,629, and this year we had 13,201. And of course, that was the good weather we had. It boosted us right past 12,000. We thought we were gonna hit, a month later, we had 13,000. So we're all happy about that. And they were too. So it was good. It's a good year for us. Looking forward to why we're here to just inform you of a project that's coming up, and it's been out in the Echo, and I think I've talked to several of you before. It's been mentioned elsewhere. Yeah. But we are going to be working on expanding the Great Leavenworth Museum. Our footprint there. We're going to retain and continue to occupy this current location on Front Street. This is an expansion. Or if you've been to the museum, it's limited space capacity wise. You need time, space, and money to do any kind of an exhibit. We can maybe find the money. We have the time, but we don't have the space. So this is a great opportunity for us, and it's a great opportunity for the Grange. We've got the overview is that it's the Grange is aging out, so they've got they're in danger of disappearing, just like a lot of other service groups. They're no different in that respect. If they do age out and they become a non-functioning Grange, then the issue with that facility there, that building that's been there since 1930, since they moved it off the train tracks, because that is the old Great Northern Railway Station, built in 1910. It will revert to the state Grange. The state Grange would then in turn sell it, because they wouldn't use it as a Grange anymore. So it'll just go back into public or private use. And that's a loss for the city and the residents, we feel. Because a lot of great opportunities with this for other expanded programs. I'm not going to go into that. That's for another meeting presentation. It's a valuable asset that we're trying to retain. So we're working on a lease with the Grange. It's going to be a lease in perpetuity, where we're there, we hope, for the duration of our lifetimes. And they've been amenable to it. They see it as an asset to the community also, something that they can benefit from. The Grange would continue. We would make sure that that continued as an organization and will be a service to the community going forward. The Upper Valley Historical Society supporters want to support the Grange. So we'd have two organizations. We have a question over here. Are we allowed to take questions from someone?
Can I?
No, don't let him speak.
No, I'm just.
I just want to know what a Grange is.
Oh, well, well, there's some history there. Granges started out after the Civil War. A lot of soldiers that died were supporting farms. So basically, they were everybody's farmhands. So you lost the labor, you lost the skill. So what the Granges did, just like any other organization tries to support a community, Granges started up as that ability to help other farmers get organized. They have a lobbying arm. That's why they're not a 501c3. They do lobby with the state. They work with railroads. When the rural power went through, organizing that again to help the rural districts and the agriculture. And that's pretty much what they want to focus on, working with farmers. And in this case, they're morphing into something else where they're working with more people working with gardens, their own private gardens. There's not a lot of agriculture in this area other than the orchards, and that's a different type of, that it's not like the things that grow out of the ground, or the trees. Did that answer?
Yeah, thanks.
Question, yeah. If you don't know where the Grange is, I brought this in case, Mike Steele and Keith Gaynor didn't know where it was. But hopefully we know where it is. We're here, right here, where the public library is. There's the Gustavs, and right across the street is where the Chumstick Grange Hall property. It's just to kind of give you that familiarity if you don't know. The existing Grange Hall is this shaded area right here, the green area. And what focusing on that is this is their actual property magnified, so you can see the existing Grange is, whoops, sorry, that's the here. With the existing Grange building right here, it's this is the train station, the larger structure there, that's the actual passenger, and then it had an add-on. And it's a two-story building on a steep slope. And then what we're doing is one of the things that is of interest, I think, to the city, certainly is to the fire department, is there is the city of Leavenworth 1939 Ford fire truck, and we want to find a place for that, and we do have a place figured out here. There's going to be a site for an exhibit hall to be placed right next to the Grange building. They've got 32 feet on that side of the building that they can build on. They've also got a site that we're we want to have as a site for an outdoor theater. I won't even go into all the benefits there. I'll tell you what, we got planned. It's gonna be big, but it's this is not to scale or anything, that's just to give you an idea, but there's a slope there. It's not usable for anything else, but if you put some pilings down there and you just engineer it right. And have it at a theater. Or a small theater, outdoor theater for programs. And other shows, so we're looking forward to that. Yeah, a little community asset. So far, what we've done is we've received, as I would have said in other prior grant applications with the city, that we did go grant from the Chelan Douglas Regional Port Authority, $6,500 for feasibility. The problem with that building structure is that if you looked at it, you'd say, you know what? I don't know if that thing is worth renovating. And so that was a concern. Is it worth it? Is it possible to renovate it? And also the slope that it's on, is it geotechnically sound? So we were fortunate enough to get a grant from almost 95% of the monies needed for the grant's feasibility studies. And looking right in front of me here, but I do like it because I can't leave this over here, but it is a quote from Syndicate Smith. Todd Smith said, as his conclusion in reading through this very lengthy geotechnical study, that He said, it doesn't appear that there are any considerations in this report that are detrimental to the continued use and or future use of the building. Because I asked him, so what does it really say? And that's what he said. So I was happy about that. Certainly there's always ways you can improve any building for any kind of slippage of soil, whatever, but he said it's been there for almost 100 years and it's not going anywhere unless you change the conditions of the soil. Happy about that. Regarding the structure itself, there was an engineering study. I'll get out of the way, but it does say, what they said in their report was, in our opinion, the existing building, which is currently being used for assembly, can be used as a museum or for related uses without modification or retrofitting, which is pretty cool for us. Because actually, it's worn down, it needs a facelift. Interior wise, we won't have to do much other than to upgrade the restrooms and such for ADA. So we're excited that that's what the conclusion was. You can use it for that. We're not going to change anything at all. It's really kind of cool how it's fitted for the museum of the purposes that we want it for. I'm not even going into all the uses because there's so many. Moving along here, future plans. Yeah, we just recently submitted a $7,000 grant application. We feel pretty positive about getting some funds from that. We know that the source of the funding is got monies to grant. And we think we got a positive outcome from that. Today, we just received $1,000 donations towards the feasibility study. There is if we get the $7,000 or thereabouts, we need an additional $4,500 to complete the feasibility study. The feasibility study portion of it is not just the structural assessment and geotechnical assessment. That has to be with anything you would want to do regarding city code, everything else has to be done. That's going to be through Cindy Smith, and Bob Smith's going to do that work for us. So we're working with that with them. And last month, we have been fortunate enough that a professional grant writer retired through this community. He did grant work for the Puyallup tribe and writing grants for them. And he's going to go back to those same wells that he got water or money from for the Puyallup tribe for their museums. And so he is this November going to be doing some major applications for those grants to get some of the monies that we will need for that. I don't want to go into the more funding because that would take a longer session. I don't think you can hear about that, but we have great opportunities with the Washington State Historical Society and their heritage grants. They'll get you up to $3 million that they match. You put it in $2, they give you $1. So if that's a question. And so there we are. Well, thank you. Wanted to keep it short just to apprise you where we're at. We're thankful that Echo published an article about us. And if you read that article, it was also in the Wenatchee Business Journal. It was really well written. We felt brought it up to date. So, are there anything from Christy? Did you want to add anything?
Hi, I'm Christy Bose, and council, I would just like to say that as we continue to come and ask for support from our community and from you and from the city, that our goal is to preserve the history for the Upper Valley. And preserving a building such as this, we are not only able to preserve history for our community, but we're also able to offer benefits. Some of the uses that could be community uses are a smaller venue for up to 100 people to have events. Local nonprofits do not have a location outside of the fest hall that is suitable for a smaller event at a lesser cost. There would be potentially meeting space that nonprofits could rent out. So there is a multitude of uses that would benefit our community. And I would just ask that you keep your ears open to what we have to ask for.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up with that. When like 35 years ago, something called the Community Coffee House started. I have so many good memories in that building. Upstairs doing dance parties and learning to swing dance, and downstairs I think Wednesday night, having local people perform. I don't know how we used to have so many, but we used to book it and I performed there. These floors are old wood. The construction inside is really neat. And it's been such a blank for me for so many years now. I mean, it's just sitting there and it's not being used. So I'm thrilled to hear that it can be, and also that you're considering community uses again, because it was just a wonderful historic space for the community.
It would also be a revitalization for that portion, 600 block of Front Street.
For sure, yeah.
Between now and when the master development plan for the entire Front Street renovation goes through and beyond.
Historically, what's happened from 35 years ago till now? I know I've gone through there on one of the craft fairs and bought some candles. It was really cool, and I don't see a lot going on in that Grange. And Grange, the history of Grange is one thing, but also in communities. My dad in North Idaho, there's a Grange in their kind of community. I mean, it is community service based. I understand after the war, but it's more now thought of maybe as community based. And I'm not sure where it's at and where it's come from. Obviously, it's come from. I didn't know that. It used to be something like this. This is great. What happened?
And that's what we want to entertain that idea because it is the top floor is 2,000 square feet, bottom floor is 2,000 square feet. The upper floor would be about 1,700 square feet. When we collapse after the weekend happens, if we want to have an event on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays, this is all just ideas. We could hold programs there during the evenings, during the midweek, when citizens, and residents and neighbors are wanting to do and get out to do things like that. There you could do all kinds of programs now. And we just want to make it available. And we're just excited that it would be.
I guess my question is more not,
Yeah.
you can't answer the questions, I guess, that I have.
You're about
different
about just past. I'm
Yeah.
a Grange member. I've been a Grange member
Okay.
for 5 years, card carrying, but had it.
Well, I'll do it later. Still on it.
But so I have familiarity with the Grange and such, and it's more of an aging process. They grew older, but unfortunately, the thing that took the wind out of their sails is when the health department, they weren't able to use the kitchen. They used the kitchen for a lot of things.
Right.
There was breakfast and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So that was the key part there. And but it has an opportunity again to be a place for non-denominational, nonpartisan programs. I mean, a meeting hall, again, going back to the days and uses that it used to have. So we're looking forward to bringing that forward. If I wasn't so busy, I would take that on as a project because it would be a fun project.
Can I have a comment about the Grange?
Yes, Cindy.
Okay, when I was a young teenager, my grandparents were members of the Grange. And at that time, they were able to help finance and send us to Grange camps for kids, which was a lot of fun. I still have a lot of memories of that. There's also been the Nazarene Church kids used to have like fun evening where they would put on a fun fair thing and the kids would run through and do stuff there. So it does have many uses. We also had our wedding reception there. So it can be used for a lot of good things, and certainly I'm on board.
Yeah, it'll be a very nice community asset. The idea of an amphitheater outdoor stadium, again, uses for children programs. You could do plays down there, you do impromptu, all kinds of things. I bought it a long time ago, a sing-along Sound of Music, and now if we do this thing, I get a sing along outdoors with the Blackbird Island in the background. So there you go. Here, Bob's up here, so.
Thanks. Well, this conversation is just great. It really brings home the importance of the Grange here. So I have to tell you that the Grange has been so instrumental in Eastern Washington for years and years and years. And we have Paul Gray, who is now the Grange master, is that correct?
Not of this Grange, but he's the district manager for, I think, Chelan County and Kittitas.
And lives up at White River area. And he was engaged with us when we went to present it to the Port District on this, because they made the investment into the assessment. And really want to reinforce the fact that this building has got a lot to it. It's structurally sound. It does need updating, but it has tremendous potential. And Rona, I also have to say that, almost 50 years ago, I was wooing my bride. And we went to square dances.
Oh, yeah.
Every Friday night, I believe it was. Great. On the wooden floors.
Yeah.
It has tremendous potential. There's a community space there.
Lots of community events have happened there in the past.
Yeah, and it's got tremendous potential. And how I ended up in with Matt on this is that I've worked in various capacities that have provided support to museums throughout North Central Washington, Schaefer Museum to Greater Wenatchee Museum. And for many years, the Leavenworth Museum struggled. But I have to say now it is on a roll and it's hugely successful. And I have great confidence that there will be private funding available for this because of what it is represented, how they're organizing, and the leadership that Matt is providing here. And I think that there's tremendous potential for public funding and private foundation funding. So this can happen, and it'll be a great benefit, economic development tool for our community and provides a means for us to honor the past and what it. So now said, thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
City Council.
You bet.
Thank you.
I'm still a little jittery about the structural design.
I'll let you read the report.
I will.
You can even take it.
Just go down and tap them.
Yeah. Thanks again.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Matt.
Christie.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we now have a public hearing. I would open the public hearing on Park Avenue vacation at 7:58. And Maggie, you're going to open up the discussion.
Thank you very much. This item before you is a request by the Leavenworth Nazarene Church to vacate a portion of Park Avenue adjacent to their property in accordance with RCW 3579. The area to be vacated was historically used as a driveway to serve a residential property that they own. In April of last year, they submitted a building permit to demolish that home. And it has now been demolished, and with not needing that driveway access anymore, they are now petitioning to vacate the right of way abutting their property. In January of this year, we issued a grading permit for them to grade the residential site, leaving a 2-to-1 slope on the west side of the property, with the remainder of the site be leveled with an existing leveled with the existing parking lot grade. It went through a CEQA review as well for that project. It has not been completed. It's still in process. The church has proposed to utilize this portion of the property for additional parking or a playground in the future. And to date, no objections to the vacation of the street right of way have been received by staff from any surrounding property owners. As noted in the ordinance in your packet, the city will reserve and retain a perpetual snow storage easement within that portion of the vacated Park Avenue. But the city has no need to reserve any additional easement rights for access to that area to be vacated. The public notice was completed in accordance with RCW, and it was published in the paper, noticed the property owners around the area, and posted at the right of way. This council action would vacate this portion of the right of way, and then it would basically be giving the 25 feet to the properties to the north and 25 to the properties to the south. I can lean on Tom here to address any questions with the public works on the easement issue at this point, if that's all right.
Yep, as Maggie indicated, we want to maintain a snow storage easement on this parcel. We currently store snow at the end of Park Avenue. However, just in terms of the dimensions, it's hard to guess, what the future holds in terms of snow storage. So we want to take advantage of this opportunity, just capture all the snow storage that we can in this area.
So does that mean, they have it, but they're not gonna do anything with it, so we're putting snow on it.
Correct. We put snow on that.
Yeah, I just-
Portion of that parcel currently.
I wondered about the 2/3. It says more than 2/3, but let's just say 2/3. Was the other third people who objected, or they just didn't say anything, or, and if they did,
Is that-
what was it for?
Is the,
Of the people that live,
so, I mean, the two-thirds majority is required for the abutting parcel owners, and the
Okay.
church owns all the abutting. So
Okay.
this vacation wouldn't impact any
Okay.
other owners. Does that make sense?
yes, and when you said playground, I can't find it in here, but it sounded, when they said playground, was that a Nazarene church playground, or is that a public playground
It would be for the Nazarene.
for the church? Okay,
And I
thanks.
do believe there's representatives here from the church as
Oh,
well.
okay.
If there's specific questions for the applicant.
Okay,
We consider it public also for the neighborhood. Playroom.
is that you, Jeff, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that beard before.
But that concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions if it wasn't.
Any comments from your, if you'd like to make a comment, you want us to come up and make it official since this is a public hearing. So if you could state your name and address and all those good things for us.
My name is Jeff Puckett. I'm at 8541 Icicle Road, Leavenworth. And representing the church for this project. One concern we had with Public Works is just the snow coming off that portion of Park Ave. Be pushed there like it always has been, and not try to use it for
The remote snow.
Yeah.
We don't have any intentions of doing that. We intend to treat it as independent as evidence.
Okay. And what about a barrier at the end of the road, because we are going to re-slope it to a 2-to-1 slope off the end down to our parking area. So a barrier should be considered. Our idea right now is just large rocks because they're everywhere.
Yeah, let's touch base on that. We could touch base offline. Some safety.
That could probably be, sorry to interrupt. But since we still have the grading permit open as well, that could be something we figure out prior to finalizing.
Yeah, that is the board's concerns to figure out how that barrier is. It's not storage. All I have to say.
Great. All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Anybody else have anything they'd want to say?
I was gonna say that, when I went to look at the property with my great map reading skills, I couldn't figure out what was what. So I went inside and, a young man came and really did a great job of showing me everything. And so it looks like really that, like that one piece that goes up like that towards, I can't remember the name of the street. I don't know what you could use that for.
Right. That's up to Park.
Yeah.
All right, if we don't have any others, I will.
I have a question.
Well, we're gonna come to our questions when we come to the actual,
That's fine.
right? The hearing portion we can close, and then when we get to the actual move, then we'll have discussion. I'll close our public hearing at 8:05 on the Park Avenue vacation. Then I will open a public hearing on the alley vacation at 8:05. This is you again.
Yes. I won't restate everything because a lot of it is the same. This is the same property, same process that it followed, in accordance with RCW 3579. This is for, vacation of the alley right of way that is currently located in the parking lot of the church. A portion of it was vacated. You have some old historic records in your packets. This would just vacate it up to the edge of their property. It would not, again, impact any of the neighboring properties owned under separate ownership. So this is just to kind of clean up that historic alley
that is not currently used as an alley. I'm happy to answer any additional questions, but I don't want to take too much time.
Anybody want to make any comments on this piece? Okay, I'm not seeing any. We'll go ahead at 8:06. We'll close the public hearing on the alley vacation. And we'll move right from there into our action ordinance items, and ordinance 1690 is the Park Avenue vacation request. And we've heard that addressed. If somebody wants to move it, get it on the floor and then we can discuss it.
Leavenworth City Council moves to adopt ordinance 1690 Park Avenue right-of-way vacation.
Second.
Moved by Shane, seconded by Rona. And you got a question there, Ann?
Yeah, my question is just based on some of the public hearing commentary, and comments from staff, specific to snow storage. I'm with our need for snow storage at the end of Park Avenue. I guess I'm curious why we're considering vacating this rather than just keeping it and using it for snow storage. Since the need is there and we're basically going to encumber all of it if it were to be vacated and turned into private property, so it's, why not just keep it as city right of way?
Yeah, that's a good question. Frankly, Lilith was driving this and that was my request. I was supportive of this process with the proviso or condition that we retain snow storage rights. So.
And it would be an encumbrance on pretty much everything we'd be vacating, right? So I guess I'm not clear on why the vacation is a necessity.
It could preclude the playground that Nazarene wants to pursue potentially. I guess we could revisit the dimensions of the snow storage, because I'm hearing that I was unaware of the regrading of 2-to-1 up to the, is it up to the right of way line? Is that the proposal? So there's gonna be no flat area and.
There might be like about a 5-foot flat section.
Okay.
At least up along the fence, which is, yeah,
Okay.
just like it, where your snow went in the first place.
So you're saying there's only, so as far as snow storage, there's only 5 foot left to snow store, to store snow?
The
It's
snow
20 degrees.
storage will actually be on the church's property. Like it has been already.
If it's vacated, but right now the snow storage is on city owned right of way.
Correct.
Right.
I have a weird question.
That's
why I'm asking.
Why does the aerial show a tree in the middle of Park Avenue in this location that we're talking about vacating?
Tree generally,
But why was there a tree in the middle of Park Avenue?
Because the road
ends
terminated before that.
yeah.
Even though it's right away, like it's hard to tell, but there's a grade differential.
Okay, I haven't walked it.
And so with the grading and the barrier, who would be responsible for paying for the barrier? Which party? We need to make a barrier for the snow to keep it in, not sliding over.
That, from a public works standpoint, that we want that to be a city-owned asset. Whether whoever installs it, it remains to be seen, but it'll be on city right away, maintained by the city eventually.
Well, it would be on private property if we
Right.
vacate this,
Vacate it.
so that wouldn't be a city owned mechanism.
Well,
Right.
it would be on the top of the slope, which would be presumably right. It would be close to the right of way line. But if it impedes snow storage, though.
To me, it seems like we don't have all of the answers we need in order to make a decision on this, but that's just my opinion.
Exactly.
Are we talking about two different, I'm not seeing the picture, I looked at it earlier. We're talking about two different little pieces of land, right?
This particular one is just one piece.
Right. The one though that we're more concerned about is this alley piece that is nice.
No,
and
the
flat.
road.
I'm sorry, the road.
The road.
It's nice and flat right now, and then it kind of drops off from there, doesn't it, right now? I did try to ride my bike over there and see if I could understand where it was. Okay, but the other piece, we don't have a problem with. It's not an
Yeah,
issue.
the picture
So
is
it's
in tab 11.
Okay.
At least it
I
should be.
couldn't find- Yeah, this one, okay. Yeah, I went over there. Yeah, I mean, I do kind of agree with this. We have it and snow is such a problem that.
Well, especially on a dead end.
Yeah, that,
To Jeff's point, if you look at the air photo,
Right.
it's provided. And the snow storage that we currently exist likely doesn't exceed
Yeah, it's right
the
there.
proposed
okay.
property line. It was just a measure to basically protect the city for future snow storage needs in the event we need it.
So we're currently wouldn't be impinging on part that's vacated.
It's close, it's right on the line.
So we've got enough above that we would still be able to do the storage.
For dated, for
For
normal
the
winters.
normal, right. So
The concern was if we had a large winter, we would likely need more than what's.
so what we're vacating is in large part, not what we need for the storage.
Daily, for typical.
For the
typical
typical storage, right?
So you would drive, do you guys go down Park Avenue and then down?
So they would be, but it's up in this area.
Are we storing any snow on your
So
property
this
right now?
part.
You had said
that
something
we
and I
would
want to
vacate
keep clear on that.
Is very little of that is
Well,
used
the
for
way the
storage. It's.
right of way is.
So we don't use this for storage.
Right.
Has the
For the most part.
ever gone out on
in
the
a
sidewalks?
normal year.
But that
This
used to
is
be
not.
the drive.
But we
So
are-
with-
You stop
Right
city
now,
property.
this is.
No, I'm not-
Right,
To leave range of the driveway.
right.
Jeff,
Now,
if we,
Until you've
Jeff, if
seen
we
it, you don't know.
didn't
You know, I'm just.
do,
I'm looking at
if we
this two
kept
dimensions,
it,
So.
what would that do to the church plans?
That's right there.
Just out of curiosity.
Well, I think we would still continue to try to get it vacated.
But I mean, what, your plan for playground and whatever here, is that gonna go, is something gonna go in there or,
Yeah, because it extends, 30 feet, maybe?
Yeah, let me get the dimensions.
yeah, it's 30 feet.
and is part of that extension a slope or is it all flat?
30 feet wide.
It is now, it's a slope. We
It's like
removed
almost-
the house and the driveway.
So this house has been removed and that's already theirs. And this was, again, the continuation of
The
the
whole
road.
area is like.
so is this the playground area there?
This is now gonna be all flat and with a slope going up.
Can we make an
But-
announcement to
But
keep
what-
part of it?
what
are they
Have
using
another
this
part or something like that?
That's what they want to flatten it to be part of their. lot, maybe.
I'm not sure why they want it actually.
But this is all,
But I know.
this is their parking lot now, that goes along the side here. And they're just wanting to flatten this to include it as all part of that.
Can I ask for one more clarification from the church? So I did ride my bike over there. I'm sure it's the same place now in talking to people. What, you can't build anything on it because we're gonna reserve the right to store snow. So explain to me again why it's important to have it.
So space. Full playground. If I, a new person speaks, you want me to introduce? them?
Yes, please.
Could you put the map up on the screen?
So I'm Brian Richter. I live at 238 Pine Street. And I'm one of the trustees for the Leavenworth Church of the Nazarene. Jeff's rolling off his term, but he's been managing this project, so. I just kind of wanted to try to explain spatially what's going on. So it is a 2-to-1 slope now. Going down, so,
It's right behind you.
yeah, so, let's see, I gotta get my bearings.
Right, the home's
So,
out
so
there.
this is what we're discussing here, and these are adjacent properties. So the 2-to-1 slope starts, approximately in the middle of the street. So really there's, and I'm not super familiar with exactly what it looked like before we actually did the grading. But we're requesting to vacate this because there actually is a lot of flat usable space even after we do that 2-to-1 slope. That really there's no way to access besides through our parking lot. And our property. So in terms of snow storage, like there's
actually quite a bit of room on that 2-to-1 slope that
Right.
snow could go. That wouldn't impede whatever our future plans end up being.
So that's the next
Oh,
question, we
flat.
put a playground there, we're gonna be pushing snow and ruin and
No.
potentially
Well,
damaging.
that was kind of what our question was,
Yeah.
is like, what's the extent of that snow storage, like,
I mean, it's hard to tell, because
Yeah.
if we had, that was telling staff, we had Snowmageddon 2.0, we would need every square inch of snow storage we could find. We ran out last time, so this would be an
So are
opportunity
we
for
not
more
planning
snow
we're
storage.
getting that
So what are we
building part?
gaining? Yeah, what are, yeah.
so I guess then, like, the question there would be, would you be asking to access the right of way through our properties?
So we just push out the end.
So, and I think like that's kind of the balance is, that's actually quite a bit of distance there. That even if we had Snowmageddon 2.0, there's actually quite a bit of room there. That I
Push
think wouldn't
off.
impede with our future plans, even if we put a playground there.
Right.
The snow wouldn't be.
Are there drives, are there those houses needing access to the street?
Yeah, so this is the last driveway for this house right here.
Where is that? Draw that with your finger.
I think it's like right here.
Okay.
So that's basically the last, the end of the road, the development.
That's our old city.
Where this is, the house we demolished, it had a driveway.
That's Anna's house.
Where it looks all like.
Did you say that was
plain
going to be
road.
demolished or has been?
It had.
Yeah, right, that's what I thought.
And
Number
the
two.
last one. That Ray.
Well, perhaps we need to
Okay, we'll
revisit
take
snow
the
storage.
Okay.
Those are a lot higher.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure with you,
Yeah, they're up.
that you had the capacity for snow storage before we vacated it.
Yeah.
Again, from my standpoint, it's an opportunity, because again, if we don't take as much snow storage as we think we need, we're not gonna get more in the future.
That's what my concern is.
And we have, over the years I've been on the council, given property for snow storage. Like up River Street, isn't it, behind there? Where Danny Watson used to live over here, you know where Danny. And then that behind it, and then it's down in the, down below. We gave all that to each property owner that was, and they were asking for it to add to their property, and that was for snow storage. So there is a concern there with the snow storage.
Well, and over time, our snow storage is gonna be diminishing.
Well, and again, what doesn't show on those is how high that Park Avenue is,
It
so
is.
that slope is quite a bit of snow area to push off of there. You're not gonna drive down it, you're gonna push from the top.
Push it off.
And there's quite a bit of space in there.
So the last 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, the Snowmageddon, like how far out did it get? I mean, tell me about that space when we had probably
So
one of our bigger years in recent
yeah,
years.
that's a good question. That's a little bit of apples to oranges comparison, only in the sense that we haul the snow out.
Oh.
Yeah,
In the event we don't haul snow, we could push snow here. But to Councilmember Hesper's point, if we encumber the parcel with a snow storage easement, I don't think we would allow a playground. So
No.
in the parcel area. So to me, the very least, we need to reconsider snow storage, and she's.
Well, and if we retain it as right of way, we can modify that space as our own right of way to serve our snow storage needs as well.
Well, Snowmageddon, every one of your storage places will flood one day.
And we're losing the one over the hill. aren't we?
Eventually.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah, we'll be hauling a lot more snow at some point.
Melting it.
Right. Yeah. Again, I don't know, yeah, if we want to, again, encumber it for snow, it just means you could still vacate it, and just with that encumbrance, just that they couldn't have equipment or whatever down there that it would impede that. So they'd have to build to the side or something, their playground part, but it still doesn't make sense in my mind to just keep it when it's at the level of everything that's below. You don't have access other than for snow to push it off. because there's no way to access it. It's through their parking lot, right? It's through private areas, so. Seems to
The
me,
access is at the end of Park Avenue.
but it drops. You're not gonna,
But it's a great place to push snow.
I'm saying that's the only thing you could do.
Well,
is
that's what
push
we've been
snow.
using it for, which I don't know why we want to diminish that in any sort of way.
I'm just saying you can vacate it though, so they could still use that for parking and whatever when it's not, as long as it doesn't encumber or keep us from being able to use it for snow.
But Tom just said he didn't know how much space we need for a snow storage easement if that's the route we end up going. So I feel like we don't have all the answers yet.
Right, and also to Mayor Boer's point, if it is used for parking, that's something that could be a no parking restriction during certain areas, certain times of the year or something. So if it is, there's no structures.
Right, it's structures that would be the problem, not.
So your Tom, your recommendation is maybe further consideration of this?
Yeah, my recommendation, I apologize, I was unaware of the 2-to-1 slope grading to the point of right of way line, that's on me for not having all the information. I would like to revisit this and firm up the snow storage dimensions before.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm close on this for sure. And but I'm curious to add, if we could add, if, as we discuss this further, which I think we'll need to discuss further, add like you said, a restriction on parking during winter, if you would agree to that. If you didn't do a playground or whatever reason, you'd be amenable to that. I mean, that would solve maybe one of the problems, get me closer to, yeah.
I think it might be beneficial to look at the grading with Tom and think about what storage knowledge could actually look
The
like.
reality.
Yeah, right.
Spatially.
Yeah, I'd love to know how much
Field
space
trip.
is needed, and I would like to not have it be like, what's our average winter? But because our snow storage over time is diminishing, it would be great to have that be a more bigger picture sort of space
That was my initial.
that is feasible within that space, and then know kind of what's left over.
Can I ask a question? What is the plan with the property that the house was demoed on? Are you guys grading that down to let a playground go there?
That starts much higher,
Okay.
so the grading's gonna come out a lot further. The slope will pick up more. Yeah, I think ultimately the final plans as to what's going to be done with the space is still TBD. I think the next step is forming some type of committee in our church to really hone in on what that looks like. Is that your understanding? Yeah.
Right now, it's set for a playground, but we. That could change.
The city does have a certain amount of space at the end of the street. Oh, I'd say at least 10 feet or so.
Yeah, well, that's what we wanna look at, so,
And fairly wide,
yeah,
you know.
well, that's what, yeah, if Tom can.
Right,
go out,
we just
we'll
want
look
to
at it.
But we want to take this opportunity to plan for worst case scenario, so we're not limiting ourselves for snow storage, but again, I want to revisit the snow storage easement dimensions.
So do we, how about if we, Shane, you moved and Rona seconded, you wanna move that and second it to move it down to our next meeting?
Well, you'd have to rescind your motion. And then we could do like a table it for the next year.
Well, move it to another,
To a date certain.
yeah, date certain,
I rescind my motion.
And my second.
okay, now you wanna,
Even though it's my boring.
Yeah.
That takes one away that you moved before, but.
Right.
You're slowing down.
She noted that she doesn't know if the next meeting they'll be able to put
okay,
it all
well,
together.
we can put it in the second meeting down, which should be enough time, right?
Yeah.
So that one would be
May 20th.
May 28th. Okay. So I would entertain a motion to move this item to the agenda on May 28th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Shane, seconded by Sharon. Any other discussion? All those in favor, let me see your hand. That passes unanimously.
Thank you, I appreciate you.
So we'll see you all later. Hold on. Oh, no, we got one more, but we'll still see them
We got
later.
another one for him.
Yeah, we'll see them later.
Yeah. Okay,
Are we adding the alley to our further discussion?
No, that.
the alley is pretty straight. That one's pretty
This is
straightforward.
another item.
I would entertain a motion to move ordinance 1691.
Leavenworth City Council moves to adopt ordinance 1691, alley right of way vacation.
Second.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm gonna give
Rona
it.
wants it
I'm
so
gonna give
bad.
it, I'm gonna give it to Rona.
Yeah,
just
thank you.
Why would you do that, Travis?
Any-
Paying attention over here.
Any other questions on this one? This is pretty straightforward. It's parking lot now, so.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor, let me see your hand. And that one passes unanimously. All right, so I got 1 out of 2.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. Actually, I don't.
You get the point of contact, yeah, operations center, right next to it. Yeah. Be in touch.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Over there again. Up around,
Okay,
'cause I know it goes uphill.
resolution 09-2024, Chantel.
Thank you, Mayor Flory. So council, you reviewed the financial policy at your April 9th study session, and we did review all of the red line changes. We were left with contemplating whether or not to amend the $300,000 reserve in the lodging tax fund. For my write-up, I did reach out to the chamber and they support an increase, but they did not give me a specific number. In retrospect of that, though, I thought, as I looked through the history, I thought very closely about the $300,000 loss that we did have from COVID. One time in the blip of my lifetime, possibly the only time in the blip of any of our lifetimes, but the reality is we did definitely take a pretty significant hit at that time. I also looked at the COLA increase and identified that if we were to do that on a 1-to-1 ratio from 2013, when this policy was adopted, to 2023, we've gone from an annual collection of 1.1 million to 4.3 million. So that 300K would be equivalent to 1.1 million, which I think is a bit excessive. So my recommendation is no more than 500,000. I did redline it with 500,000, but it is definitely in your hands at this point to finalize that number.
Questions?
Leavenworth City Council moves to approve resolution 09-2024 financial policy update.
Second.
By Ann, seconded by Shane. Any other questions
And right now it says 500.
Correct.
in there?
And we do review this every year, so this will be back on your plate next April.
All right, hearing none, all those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And now, acceptance of ecology loan. Andy,
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is resolution 10-2024. This is formalizing the acceptance of the ecology loan that you approved and authorized the mayor to execute at our previous council meeting. This is just formalizing that acceptance via resolution, which is a requirement of ecology. And I apologize, I should have had this on the previous agenda to go along with that, but that is for not having that. So this is all the same information that was previously provided to you when we accepted the loan at the previous meeting.
and entertain a motion.
The Leavenworth City Council moves to approve resolution 1024, acceptance of ecology loan for wastewater facility and general sewer plan.
Second.
Moved by Shane, seconded by Ann. Any other questions? All those in favor, let me see your hands. Passes unanimously.
Yeah.
And another one, supplemental agreements. Andy,
Yeah, so this is supplemental agreements number 4 and 5 to the professional services agreement with Grant Osborne for the Glacier Parking Lot Improvement Project. So I know that these are very large numbers. To have this be number 4 and 5 is pretty substantial, but to give you a quick background, the original scope was just for the pre-design of 3 parking lots in the city. Then supplemental agreement number 1 was just for additional geotechnical services. Supplemental number 2 was for the full design of the Glacier parking lot. And then supplemental number 3 was just a contract time extension. So what we have before you tonight is supplemental 4 and 5. 4 is for the restroom design. So initially, when we started down the design of this project, we anticipated using a prefabricated restroom structure, a CXT building that we could have installed on the site. But upon further review and taking it to the design review board, we ultimately determined it was not feasible for us to make it Bavarian enough to meet our old world Bavarian theme. And also the size of the restroom grew somewhat as well. So ultimately, we determined our only path forward was to have this be a constructed restroom instead of having it be prefabricated. And so the supplemental agreement number 4 is for that design of the restroom building. And so that is a total of $151,000 for the restroom building design. That's supplemental agreement number 4. Then supplemental agreement number 5 is just for services during construction for GNO to do on-site observation, construction management, documentation. And that is a total of $316,660. So I know this is somewhat confusing the way that it's presented here with the combined total, but ultimately our goal here is just to increase the total amount of their agreement. That's what the supplementals show. So that's why your motion has this $6,992. That is the combined of all 5 of the supplemental agreements, the 3 that we've previously done, plus supplemental number 4 and 5 that are before. Yeah.
What's the difference between the prefabricated restroom and the cut construction, the new one?
So honestly, we didn't, I don't remember the construction cost off the top of my head. I do think that was partially why the restroom ended up more expensive, but I don't remember the cost, the difference in the cost estimate. More than anything, it wasn't going to be feasible for us to do the prefabricated building, so, it ultimately ended there. We didn't finalize the design and get a more, refined cost estimate on that one.
This is where we're getting $150,000 supplemental for the driver bathroom. Is this the bathroom we're speaking about?
It is, yes.
So in the construction, I get that, but this, yeah. This is the same bathroom.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
okay. Yes.
The 150 is for design or construction?
The $151,000 here is just for additional design services for Gray and Osborne to design the full restroom. What Councilmember McMaster is referring to is Link through an interlocal agreement refunding us up to $150,000 because there will be a separate Link driver restroom as part of the same building. But it's similar dollar amounts, but completely separate.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't suppose there's any point in complaining about $151,000 to do bathroom design. That's normal, huh?
Yeah, so on initial review, I thought the numbers seemed high, but then as we further evaluated it, I do think that it's a pretty fair cost for what we received. It ended up being a substantial increase in scope to them over what we initially anticipated and had in their original scope using the prefabricated.
So when you went from the prefabricated one to this one that meets Bavarian criteria, so for the whole total design of the whole building, that's 151,000.
Correct.
And Andy, the 316,660, that this is somebody separate that's sort of managing the contractors?
Yeah, so this is Gray and Osborne being on site, then they have a geotechnical consultant who will be out there because there's quite a bit of geo work that needs to take place for the subgrade of the parking lots. It actually was used as an old dump, and so we have pretty unstable soils out there, and I don't know if you've observed, but in that parking lot, we get these big settlement, very large settlement, and I guess how would you, it almost looks like, yeah, sinkhole, that's true. I was gonna say rat hole, but that's great.
Bigger than a rat.
Bigger than a rat, so, it includes the geotech being out there, as part of construction as well. And while that number does seem high, I do
Yes.
want to state that 15% generally is industry standard for construction management. This is less than 10%. And of that, I mean of the construction contract. So our construction contract that we awarded to KRCI, I think if I remember off the top of my head, was 3.016 million or something in that realm. We're about 10% of that contract.
Okay.
Where are we on overall budget? Like, is this still within what we have agreed upon? Like, part of our contingency
A
or
lot of notes to myself to meet with Tom, to wrap my brain around.
like you're not
the
actually
different
asking us
contracts.
to like provide more money for this project. You're just having us move money around within the overall budget.
Based on last time we met, management team last week, we had nothing in the parking lot covered.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is an extra monetary allocation.
So it's funny you say that. The note I wrote to myself is move funds around, question mark.
Right.
Yeah, because like, I know in the current budget, there's about 3 million already allocated just to lot. Sorry, Glacier. Glacier, I have to remember it. So that covers at least the construction side of it, and we already have paid for all the original engineering and design, so it's really just this new engineering and design, and then the construction admin that we're talking about. Tom does have another 890,000 in the parking fund that was being set aside for P2, P3, and he had said, well, we may just want to move those improvements out a little bit longer so that we can finish this one.
And we're not in a position to, set this one.
But this is an extra money ask of almost $500,000 from the parking fund.
Unfortunately, will state like we cannot do services during construction. It's imperative. Right?
Could you say that again, Tom? I couldn't hear you.
So we cannot manage the construction with existing staff.
We can with city staff.
The services during construction.
Because you gotta have,
Okay.
they gotta be there all the time.
Right, and it's a complex project from a geotechnical standpoint, as Andy indicated, this is a former landfill. They have to roll out geogrid, and if they put any waves or wrinkles in the geogrid, it could have lasting impacts.
Okay, so that, I have a question. So when we've got a couple different parties involved with the construction and then the initial design and then their geo guy and then they've got the construction guys have a geo guy. And then in 10 years, there's waves, and there's a sinkhole that forms, like are there languages in the contract saying who's responsible for making sure this is right? Because it sounds like it's getting complex and we're aware of that.
Yeah.
There potentially is something down the road. We're paying a little bit more now? Are those also given some insurances because we have a geological person on site? Is this protecting us also? Or is there language?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. In terms of like the actual contract work that takes place, that's clear in the contract language, also in the warranty that they're required to provide to us on this project. In terms of the actual contract with GNO, Gray and Osborne, and then they have a subcontract with the geotech. I mean, really, we would need to get into what the root cause was of that issue in order to determine where that liability lands. But to Tom's point too, in terms of like staff time, this is a 100 working day contract. And so we have in this $316,000 for construction management, full-time inspection. So our staff doesn't need to be spending time, like I don't have the time to be spending on this. And so they'll manage that and do all the documentation side of things so that we have documentation of what was done in the field. So if an issue does come up, we have a much better idea of whose liability that is.
So we're picking our battles too. We're paying a little bit more because of the time, and that's fair. If you take pressure off of,
Yes, and I would say this is a very normal dollar amount for this size contract. This is actually less than what I was expecting to see from them when they put together this scope of fee.
I'm not afraid of the money. I just, other than, I'm afraid.
Sinkholes.
Yes, and it will be mitigated with the geogrid as we mentioned.
So
So
what are
that's,
they gonna do when a sinkhole happens?
so.
You
so
can
we-
eat a car and, I mean.
Oh, no, it's not like, you're not.
It's a
yeah,
baby
it-
sinkhole.
It's
Just like
not
the
like,
tire.
yeah, clay that's gonna liquefy and you're gonna fall to the center there. It's like a small sinkhole that forms right now because there's unconsolidated soil and like clothes and other material that they found in site investigation.
Close?
There's a land.
Oh, okay.
So when they roll out the geogrid, think that you have a pool, like a pool of water, and you're pulling a really tight tarp over it. If you have the tarp pulled really tight, you can now walk across that pool, even though you're, suspended above it. That's essentially what we're doing with this geogrid. This geogrid will span, and that's why it's so essential. That's why we do require the geotech to be on site for this, so that we have a very clear, means and methods to make sure that geogrid is pulled tight, so things like these sinkholes don't reflect up above the geogrid.
So what do you tie down the edges of the thing with?
I can't pretend to be an expert. in this.
Oh, you wouldn't understand.
Sharon, it's like a
Capacitor
big
inside, pulls down.
trampoline.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's maybe not the picture of a sinkhole that you have in your mind that your
Florida.
car is gonna fall into, but it's more settlement and some of it is, I mean, I did see one that was like a foot, 18 inches in diameter. And it's a deep hole of unconsolidated soil, but at the end of this project, that is not something we anticipate being an issue.
$1 million target. Once this glacier.
I'm not parking there.
It's gonna be a paid, so we'll generate.
Yeah.
Right. Revenue. too.
It'll be the diamond in the city's parking lot. Personal one, $1 million parking lot. Cool.
Will there be any kind of, I mean, can any kind of a vehicle, no matter how big it is, truck, whatever, be on parking on there?
I don't remember the number of stalls off the top of my head. I think there's 7 large vehicle parking stalls for like a RV stop.
He's wondering if weight is gonna be an issue with it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tesla.
no. It's designed for that.
Oh, okay.
I
Why don't
knew
I
what-
trust
I
it?
could tell you were really asking there.
We're not gonna find anything toxic under there since it was a dump, right?
Maybe it's
So-
already fallen down in there.
Investigation done, but to my knowledge, I don't know.
It's mostly just being kept. So it doesn't matter.
No, I don't.
Yeah. Be
I don't
sealed, cap
remember,
and seal off.
there was nothing concerned in the preliminary
Okay.
investigation.
Okay, are we ready? Supplemental agreements 4 and 5?
Leavenworth City Council moves to approve to authorize the mayor to execute supplemental agreements number 4 and 5 associated with the Gray and Osborne January 2022 Asgard, Blewett, and Glacier Parking Lot Professional Services Agreement. Together updating the not to exceed amount to $699, $600,099
Nope.
and 692.
Keep trying. Keep trying.
$699,692.
There you go.
You're sounding like me.
Second.
Okay. Travis moved with great difficulty
Update my reader.
and
That's it.
Big seconded. Any other questions? All those in favor, let me see your hand. And all those opposed?
I'm not opposed. I'm
You're not.
dropping out of whatever
Abstaining.
the word is. Abstaining, thank you.
She's not.
I'm creeped out by the sinkhole, I have to admit.
So it's 5 and 1 abstention. All right,
Council.
another supplemental agreement number 7 of Gray and Osborne Public Works on-call contract for scrub seal construction administration. Andy?
Yeah, so, this is for the 2024 scrub seal project, which is the next item on the agenda that I'll briefly touch on. But this is for similar to what we just talked about with the Glacier parking lot for the construction administration from Gray and Osborne of the 2024 scrub seal project. The total dollar amount for their services on this project is $150,000. So again, this is confusing because really this motion is centered around the total contract that we have with them. This on-call contract, which now we have a new 2024 contract, but this previous contract has been in use since 2021. So there's been a ton of different small projects that have been added on to the total dollar amount of this contract, which is why you see that this is updating the not to exceed amount to the 313,000. Again, that is not all due to this project, only $150,000 would be from the construction admin. And similar to what we mentioned for the Glacier parking lot, this is for them to be on site full-time during construction, documenting, reviewing all the submittals, contractor RFIs, if there's change orders, drafting those, negotiate them on our behalf. So all those things are wrapped up in this dollar amount. I'm trying to remember what the dollar amount for these bids were off the top of my head, but they're over $1 million. And so this again is a relatively smaller fraction of the total project cost than, this seems like a very reasonable cost for the services they're going to be providing.
Any
Oh,
questions?
yes, and thank you. This is primarily funded by TIB, so CIB is responsible for 90%, we're on 10%. And this is under the estimated amount that we had in our grant agreement with CIB.
Questions?
Yeah, so this is, like you said, 90% of this amount, 313,000.
No, no, the-
90% of the 150,000 that's
that
spent for
part.
this work.
Is by TIB.
Yeah, and it's very confusing. Normally when we have bigger projects with Gray and Osborne under the on-call contract, we have a separate contract, like the Glacier parking lot was not procured under the on-call, but normally we'd have a separate project contract. This was done under our general on-call contract we had with them because TIB wanted us to hit the ground and have this thing designed in like a month or two. And so they were procured under our on-call contract. And that's why TIB is only funding the one section, you know, like the one portion of the supplemental agreement, not the whole agreement.
What's TIB?
The Transportation Improvement Board, it's a Washington State.
Big funder of our streets and stuff. That's the one
Interstate
that's-
fuel taxes in play coming back to our community.
Yeah.
The Leavenworth City Council moves to approve and authorize the mayor to execute supplemental agreement number 7. I'm on the wrong one.
Yeah,
This is-
this is contingent upon the awarding the
Yes, can you
bid.
get the new motion? Okay, I forgot.
Okay, can I do a revised motion then?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Leavenworth City Council moves to approve and authorize the mayor to execute supplemental agreement number 7 associated with the Gray and Osborne Public Works on-call professional services agreement, updating the not to exceed amount of $313,000 contingent upon awarding the 2024 scrub seal bid.
Second.
Here's the contingent thing.
See?
That was that one sheet of paper,
Yeah.
okay.
Moved by Rona, seconded by Ann. Any other questions?
Yes, are, Gray and Osborne billionaires yet from the city?
Are they what?
Billionaires yet from the city?
Not quite.
We're trying.
Do they send you guys gift baskets or anything?
We can't accept the.
A gift basket.
Doesn't.
Oh.
They could just leave it in our yard, we wouldn't know.
Yeah. If they're watching it. It's being recorded. Don't send it.
All those in favor, let me see your hands. And it passes unanimously. And now 17 is the scrub seal bid award. Andy?
So, in the council packet, it's talking about being a placeholder and that additional information be provided to you. But unfortunately, this is again getting pushed down the road because we are not at a place where we can yet award this project. I think I mentioned at the previous council meeting that we had received 2 bid protests in the allocated time outlined in the RCW. So after legal review of those 2 bid protests, we found one that we felt had legal merit. So we provided an intent to award to the second lowest bidder, of which we then received what's not an appeal against our decision to reject the low bidder. Because of the timing in which that was published and then their appeal was received for the RCW, we have to wait 2 more days, so we're not currently at a position where we can award this project. We're hoping to in the near future. Hopefully, we can get back to you.
Before the season is over?
Yes, we think that we should have a path forward, but again, don't want to speak too much on that until that's finalized.
Okay, nothing to move on that action item.
So Eddie, just to summarize, you considered awarding it to the second lowest bidder. And when you did that, because you found something legally that had merit, but then when you did that, you got another appeal about that.
We got an appeal from the low bidder who we had thrown out.
Okay.
Saying that they were not a responsible bidder. And so then when we sent the letter that we were intending to award to the second highest, the lowest is then appealing our decision, saying that they're not responsible. So they're, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
that makes
they're,
Yeah, it does. I just-
one company's appealing one thing and then they're re-appealing another thing. Is it the
There-
same company that's doing these appeals?
It's
No.
not, no, there's actually 3 companies, well, so we had 4 bidders and 3 companies involved in the process. One bid protest we threw out.
We said we didn't feel that that had merit. We have heard nothing else on that. The second bid protest is the one that we did think had legal merit.
Okay.
And then after notifying the contractor, the lowest, then they're appealing.
The one that got thrown out is now. appealing.
Yes, correct.
Yes, okay.
So unfortunately, just with the RCW and the timing requirement, we're a
Good.
day, we're a day or maybe 2 days at this point away from response.
Good luck.
Yeah. All right, move on to council report, Sharon.
Okay, on the tenth, I attended the Women's Exchange Luncheon, and I also went to the fire department meeting, and I love when I go to these, and the guys who have been in training are given their badges, and their moms and dads and brothers and sisters. Everybody's there taking pictures. It's really a fun night. On the 11th, I attended the Autumn Leaf Festival meeting, and they're still, gathering stuff so that they get to the parades and all that. On the 15th, I attended the Chelan Douglas Health District meeting, and later that night, the Mosquito District Board meeting. We voted a new member on, one of our members that's been a longtime member, dropped off, and so we onboarded somebody else or onboarded somebody else. And Jenny Mullins, the head of the Mosquito Board, said that she's checking all kinds of different areas and finding lots of larvae. And I think because of the lack of snow this year, it might be an interesting year for the Mosquito Board. On the 16th, I attended the community dinner at the Methodist Church. They do that once a month, 5 to 7. It's free, and it's fun. A lot of the community come and partake. On the 17th, the Ardborn Playground Equipment Project is, correct me if I got this wrong, Tom, is complete, and the design has been sent to the company. And they said approximately 7 weeks to make the equipment and 6 weeks to install.
That's correct.
Okay, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that it will be completed before summer is over. We had a little lunch together, our committee at Gustav's. And that evening, Clint did the announcing for the Mr. Kodiak, and I was a judge, and I haven't had so much fun in a long time. I'll never miss one of those. So stick or not, I'll go. It was so encouraging to see these young guys. There were, I think, 6 of them, or 7, and they were so creative with what they did. It was just amazing. And the crowd was just into everything. The whole place at the high school there was full of people. And in this world today that we have, and there's so much negative and so much, messy stuff going on, to see these young men shine and their creativity was simply amazing. I loved it. And then on the 19th, I went to the council retreat at the Icicle Village Resort, and my garage doors fixed. It didn't make any scratches on my car, although the door had my car cradled. And I think what happened was we have one garage door opener on my side that sometimes you have to shake it a lot before it'll work, and other times you can go, and the garage door goes up. And I think because I like my 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s music, and I blasted in the car, that, I had to open the garage door to walk through. And so I think when I backed out, or when I set down the garage door opener, it must have decided the garage door was going to close then. And so I didn't notice that. I thought maybe a car had driven up the driveway and crashed into me. I don't know what it was. And so Carl came and got me. And a great time was had by all. And then today at the Downtown Steering Committee, I'll leave that to Zeke at Selby. And and I want to remind everybody, on May 2nd, the Chumstick Wildfire Stewardship Coalition invites you to their 2024 town hall event. I'm a member of that board, and they will have information booths outside, which will be manned by the fire department and all these different organizations to do with wildfires, where you can get pamphlets and you can ask them questions. And then from 6:30 to 7:30, I'm just going to read this. Sean Norman, a seasoned veteran in wildlife management and response. Don't miss this opportunity to learn from Sean Norman's wealth of experience and his pivotal role in managing some of the most significant wildfire incidents on the West Coast, including the Paradise, California tragedy. And anybody that wants to stay longer than that, from 7:30 to 9, there'll be a moderated panel discussion with professional experts there. So I hope you all take advantage. Thursday, May 2nd, out at Snowy Owl. And so it's a comfortable place to be sitting for a while. And I think we're going to get a lot of information and questions asked, questions answered. So thanks for listening.
And
Last week I attended the Lake Transit Board meeting on Tuesday, and of note was a supplemental interlocal agreement with the city of Leavenworth to reflect roundabout water main costs. That was approved by the board by resolution to incorporate bid costs by adding the underground water mains to the original interlocal agreement. So lots going on back and forth associated with the roundabout. I talked a lot of policy and that sort of thing too, but that's not really interesting of note. And then last Thursday, I attended the parking committee meeting, and our meeting was almost 2 hours long. It's usually not that long, but we had Rick Williams, our parking consultant, attend the meeting, and he and his staff gave us a nice long presentation of their draft action plan, and he walked through all of the various recommendations, his parking management strategies that he's recommending to us that we'll then be able to use and choose to either implement or not implement. But he gives us really good guardrails on those suggestions and why they are suggestions with objectives and desired outcomes and that sort of thing. So it was a really great long presentation from him, and the parking committee is going to be having a special meeting to go through all the information that we gained from that presentation, so that we can come up with any potential questions or responses that we may have to the information in the draft action plan and from that we gained from the presentation. And we're going to meet with him at our regularly scheduled meeting again in May. And our retreat was awesome. It was good. It's a good use of a PTO day from work. Mostly.
I second that.
Okay. So first off, on April 16th, we had a discussion about in the planning commission, we had a discussion about condos. And I wanted to get a clarification from Kaylin Benjer of Men, just what Men was, how they saw that, how they saw the value in it, and that sort of thing. So that was, I'm not going to go into that detail, but I did sit down with her for about 45 minutes and got a good sense of where Men was on why that was, from their aspect, combination, how you want to say that, how you could turn rentals or that structures into condos, how that benefits home ownership. So that was a valuable discussion. I also had a great time at Mr. Kodiak. Well done. Our one and only Clint Strand as far as the MC. It's just an awesome evening. And then on the 18th, the finance committee met with Chantal. We went over basically the criteria for investment objectives, which are the safety of it, how safe our investments are, the liquidity, and the return on investment. That's three of the criteria we look at. She looks at when she considers making investments. And then we also got into the March finance report. I'm just gonna take us directly off what she wrote up. And you'll probably clarify it anyway, but whatever I mess up. Yeah. Our cash flow increased from 27.6 million in February to 29.3 million in March, much of it due to the 1.3 million grant and reimbursements. We did have a reduction in our base retail sales tax from the month of March. It decreased from 11.2 down to 15.58 we had in February. So that was a decrease from 11.2 down from 15.58. We also had for this is the shoulder season. So the lodging tax also had significant decrease. February, it was went from March, let's see what I'm saying here. Had a significant decrease in March, going from 9.95 in February to just 3.26 in March. But it is the shoulder season, and that's kind of how sometimes it flows. So that was the finance, that's my part of the finance report. And then we had a pretty interesting downtown discussion today. We had a crowd there of some sort. And basically, I think I'll just focus on that. We had folks from the business district on 9th and commercial, and they have an issue with how the barricades are set up. That's preventing folks think they can't go down there. They think it's closed for safety. And actually you can walk down the sidewalk, but the way it's written on the barricades is they had people thinking they couldn't come down there. So we had a real positive, I think, discussion on how that can be changed, what strategies we can use to modify that. And so it was great to have that many people sitting at a downtown steering committee meeting, and I think really valuable. So and just a short thing about parking. Our income from the parking from Shannon was that we brought in 87,000 for March, and for the year, parking since January has brought in 325,000. And in fees, like for people paying for not paying their fees on time, they brought in 26,000. So that's what I've got. There's more to it, but I think I'll just stop. That's enough. And that's the end of my report.
Shane.
Last Wednesday, the 17th, I attended a special meeting of the PRSA with the Friends of Leavenworth Pool. They would like to host kind of like a community pool opening event in June. Tentative date for the 13th when school gets out. They've reached out to Sue Cragen to start the initial steps on, reserving or using Lions Club Park. And this event would kind of, introduce themselves to the community and talk about the upcoming levy vote. I also met with the finance committee last Thursday. They did an excellent job on reporting on that. And I had my first council retreat last Friday, which was really awesome. And I learned quite a bit at the retreat, and it was a great day to spend with everyone.
Great.
That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Rona.
Last week, Finance Committee, which has been spoken about, good meeting, parking meeting, which was really interesting, having so many people there. That was really fascinating. And I know some of the business owners from downtown, so we even stayed after and we're talking about different issues. One thing that's possible is in the off season, 1 day of complimentary parking downtown. And I'm really interested in that. So I'm following that particularly. And a lot of issues. It's fascinating, actually, because parking's been huge on people's minds for decades here in this town. The retreat was great. Thank you for letting me have my yoga mat, my heating pad. I was commenting from lying on the floor. I did my exercises. Anyway, it was a good retreat. I know I made it through the day. That's true. people carried my heavy stuff out. So next, I think it's 3 weeks until we have our next meeting, I think, right? So that's Tech and Dress Week for our final season of the show, Unsettled, that the city has supported in the past. And you guys might know that I'm the creative director and producer, but the other thing is we had cast the narrator, which is a big part that I and my co-writer wrote several years ago. And we cast her 3 separate times with excellent actors. And strangely, each one of them had to drop out until all that was left was me to play that role. So, so I don't know if you know Lucy, who runs the ski area up above and brings the bands and stuff. Yeah, so Lucy is a costumer and makeup artist that lived in New Orleans, and she's doing my costume and doing my fantasy makeup to play this character. And so I'm going to be very preoccupied that day in our tech rehearsal. And I invite you to come if you haven't seen Unsettled. It's the most culturally diverse show that's ever been in this region. Dangerous Women works with the Native American women. I don't know if it's being done in America much. They don't like to collaborate, but that we're all collaborating. It's an original show. It's the history of this area. And it's pretty fascinating. And so this is the last season we're going to do it. We did it 3 seasons, and this is the very last one. So those shows are the 18th and 19th, 2 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday. So I invite you to attend. It'll be fun. And I'll be up there on Moon Mountain being the moon. That's my report.
Thank you. Travis.
Last week, I attended the PRSA meeting with Shane and Chantel and I think with Folk, and we pretty much what Shane said. We got on the ballot, which was great, because if we don't get funding or get passed on the first one, we have an opportunity for the second one. And if we don't get that funding, it's going to be very challenging for this pool to operate. With that said, if we do get the funding, I think we need to take a really hard look at the pool and the way it operates. And so with that said, we're talking about different weekends, their holidays, and having more of a community party and inviting people and people that feel maybe disconnected from the pool, who think it's just for lap swimmers or just for the school. I think this pool needs to be more community. And so we all agreed on that. And so there's a lot of really cool energy around the pool right now. And not that there hasn't been in the past, but like we need this energy right now. And so I think they're going to try to, I think space is limited at the community night, but we're really trying to get the pool people there, friends of Leavenworth Pool, to have a nice kiddie pool, do something fun, interactive thing with the pool and get some engagement that night with the community. And went to the retreat, and I think as everybody said, it was a great day to spend with really good people, a lot of good interaction and super positive. Thanks. That's it.
Right. So, just real briefly, I spent 3 hours with the PUD talking about the next 75 years. Because, I mean, as they say, when they first started out buying a dam and building a dam and all of that stuff, I mean, it was, again, visionaries that said, what in the world are you doing? And people were, skeptical of what was going on. But that foresight, again, is why we pay an average of 3.5 cents a kilowatt hour, and the state average is 11 and the national average is 15. So, but again, one of the things, just as we thought water, we've never run out in this, I mean, it's always going to be there. You don't have to, worry about it. And we're suddenly seeing it as the next oil and gold and whatever else. Same way with electricity, and what our rates are and the things that we've grown accustomed to. And so the PUD is really trying to look at the future, because it is astronomical, the amount of energy now that's being created by all our server farms, all of our AI that's being done. So we've basically grown the electricity we use in the valley in Chelan County has grown 1 to 1.5% a year. It's just been a flat 2023, so it's right around 200. What is it, gigawatts of electricity. Right around 200. Between 2023 and 2028, the next 5 years, doubling
In our county?
in our county,
Huh.
doubling the use. The good news is we're only using about 25% of our dam capacity. We sell the rest of it, right? So it just means more of it will be brought in. But again, as climate change and all these things, the amount of water going down the rivers is going to be a factor moving forward. We're not going to be able to. So one of the big things is how do you store energy? That's going to be the next huge issue moving forward, is being able to store it. And there's a number of ways and technologies that they're talking about, hydrogen being one of them, using the excess. Because right now, I mean, once that water goes through, you got to use it now or lose it, right? I mean, so we don't have the kind of storage that's going to be necessary in the future so it was 3 hours of really fascinating. I mean, I wish everybody could get that update and start that process, but I give them credit. I mean, they're forward thinking. They're saying it's not too early to be planning that next shift of what's going to be needed and what's going to happen. So,
Carl, who presented that from the PUD?
well, they actually had a futurist that came in and is working with them on those things, but a lot of their statistics and stuff is just from their own, group. But it was done by her name was Rebecca something, but a futurist that came in and is helping guide this whole process for them.
Okay.
But yeah, fascinating work, and it was so we all got to play the game of what's critical moving forward, and we all in our tables got to try to prioritize for the PUD what we think is coming up, and then how ready they are to address them. And so it was an interesting exercise, but yeah, and it's going to be going on, and there'll be other times when they'll get community engagement through that process, because it's several year process. It's not just happening overnight, but it was great to be able to be involved in that first one. Basically, that's it. And Selby.
Thank you, Mayor. AEG Atlas was at the car wash property conducting soil and groundwater sampling as part of the $200,000 integrated planning grant that the city received from the Department of Ecology. So that field work was taking place last week. The field work is complete, and the earlier results indicate that the property is clean, but we're still waiting on the final report. With the return of Derek Gildersleeve in the Utility Maintenance Division and the hiring of Crystal Whitehall as our new AP PRSA clerk, we only have 2 full-time positions remaining to fill. Permit tech, the building official. Interviews for permit tech began last week, and Lilith is scheduling a second round. And pool manager Kelly Lemons is in the throes of hiring for the summer pool season as well. Staff had a labor management meeting with the Teamsters last Monday, and included Cabot Down Associates to discuss comparable communities for the compensation study. With the comps agreed upon and the position description questionnaires in hand, the compensation study data collection is beginning in earnest. The Downtown Steering Committee met this morning with a large contingent of business owners from 8th, 9th, and commercial, as Zeke mentioned. Discussion included installing the blue bollards to make a more permanent barrier to take the place of the ugly orange barricades that everybody hates. Improving signage during construction festivals and events to encourage foot traffic down 9th. And I know that they say that no one walks down there, but there's photographic evidence contrary to that. There's plenty of people walking down 9th Street when it's closed during the festival of lights. Next month's meeting, we'll review statements qualifications received for the Front Street redevelopment project. So that RFQ is out there right now. We'll also discuss updating the faded wayfinding signs that are along Highway 2. And addressing the faded light pole banners downtown that say more shops and dining this direction. And also, we'll discuss signage for traffic barricades during street closures. Spent most of my time between meetings prepping for the council retreat that took place Friday. I think the day went well. During my presentation, I asked council to rank a large number of capital projects that are on the horizon. And I shared the results with you via email yesterday. The Osborne Property Adaptive Reuse Project came out first. The Public Works Campus expansion was second, and a parking garage was third. So those are top three priorities according to your voting. And a reminder that the next quarterly engagement night, community engagement night, is taking place on Tuesday, May 7th, is the date, from 4 to 7. So please note the earlier time. We noticed that people were waiting to get in when we were getting there with at 5 o'clock with the pizza, and that nobody was coming after 7 o'clock. So we've adapted. So 4 to 7 will be the hours. And we will have 17 tables at the event.
Wow.
The vast majority are not city tables, and there's no room for a kiddie pool. It's 17 tables.
See. TBD.
You can have it outside.
If they were coming to engagement night.
They are going.
Okay. good.
I invited them, I added them to the
I was like,
list.
wait a minute,
No.
engagement night.
But they said nothing about a
Room at the
pool.
welcome table.
No kidding pool, no kidding pool, okay, all right, I'm good with that.
Can we get like a foot tub? Yeah. Chantel?
Oh, thank you, gosh, I feel like I've been with half this council for the last week, with all these meetings that I've been with all of you, so it's been fabulous, and the retreat was just awesome. It always is, it's such a good time for us to get to know each other and just kind of relax and a full day of fun, so thanks everyone for coming to that. I just want to clarify on the finance committee, so Zeke, you did mention that everything was March, and that is true. That's when we received the revenues, but there's a 2-month lag. And so those were actually January sales is what we were getting, which is a little bit surprising to me historically, because January is a month that typically continues to chug along. And I didn't see any signs of this drop that was quite significant in the lodging tax fund. There's almost $50,000 on 350,000 prior year, I think. So it was a big number. What I look at to gauge when I see this happening is parking revenue, because parking revenue is real time. The March revenue, or excuse me, the January revenues were not dropping. So it is unusual. The people were here. They just maybe weren't spending as much money. And
Or
maybe they
staying
weren't staying in the hotels, but they were here.
Yeah.
Because parking says they were here.
Gotcha.
I'll keep my eye on that closely. February and March are upticks in parking, so I don't expect it to be a trend of a slow recession. PRSA, you guys covered all of that very well. I was just gonna try to come to our engagement night, and thank you for mentioning the June pool grand opening event. So we'll see how that goes, and lots of other great ideas for ongoing, just bringing our community closer to the pool and getting to support it. Sally, thank you. You mentioned Crystal Whitehall. So we did make an offer last week and we got an acceptance. And Sharon, I know you know who Crystal is.
She was
So-
lifeguard at the pool back in
So
the day.
Crystal is a local to our community. She was a lifeguard probably close to 8-9 years ago.
No, I think it was more than that.
Okay.
It was more.
It's been quite a
than
while.
Managing, which
Yeah.
was 19 years ago.
Okay. Oh, okay. Quite old.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she comes to us with a wonderful decade of experience in minor in AP, but strong in payroll and processing all the AP related with payroll, as well as some committee work. So I'm looking forward to her arrival on May 2nd. And with that, I just want to give big kudos to Shirley and Beverly, my 2 other staff upstairs that are pulling the weight right now, because with this announcement, I did lose my temp who had also applied for the job. And so we are down 1 out of 4 people in the front office and finance, which you can imagine the significance of not having that person that is processing all of the bills of the city. So I'm the AP clerk for the next 2 weeks. I'm also the PRSA clerk. So I finished that meeting and I'm preparing for the next meeting. So I've just had to juggle my calendar a lot to make sure that that position is filled and that we don't have anything important.
Well, thank you, Chantel. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
All right, Maggie.
All right, I'll push through this really quickly. We have seen a reduction in building permit submittals this month, but a large uptick in inspections. Last month we had 68 inspections. So far this month, we're already at 94. Shout out to Christian Winston, because she is doing all those pretty much on her own. And we're also learning a new code. We adopted the 2021 building codes last month, and she is taking the time to learn all those new codes. And so it's a huge undertaking. She's doing a great job. Design review has been pretty steady. We've had just a handful of permits come in. We did approve the bouldering gym's design last month. Code compliance, we've had a kind of a larger number of unpermitted remodels and garage conversions coming in. So we're trying to educate folks, and we are having a lot of voluntary compliance, which is awesome. You know, we talk through it. We don't have to go through the whole code enforcement process, which is great. Land use permits, we did record Alpenglow 3 phases 1 and 2 on April 15th. So that is 30 lots off of Ski Hill for those first 2 phases. So those are up for sale now. I do have 2 current short plats that are in process, one for 2 lots right behind us on Whitman Street. That did already go through an approval in the past. It's a resubmittal. And then for 3 lots on Orchard Street. We had a hearing examiner decision issued for the Adventure Park on April 11th. We have received 2 requests for reconsideration, one from the applicant and one from RC3. And those are with the hearing examiner, and we should have decisions on those reconsideration requests by next week. We did, hearing examiner approved the 2 variance requests for the city for the setback variances for the Glacier parking lot building and the pavilion at Front Street Park. We already talked about planning commission. I got to meet with the hazard mitigation planning team for the Chelan County, the steering committee last week. That's going great. We meet monthly, and that will continue throughout the year. Big thing, Amy worked super hard, and I have to give her kudos really quick. All the SUPs are up and running downtown, as you can see. It's a huge effort to get all those people into compliance, making sure you have their insurance, that you have all their spaces dedicated, and drafting all the agreements. Each time it's a little different. It takes a long time. And we have 13 of those, and she did a fabulous job. And I just hear wonderful things about Amy at the time and how great she is to work with. So I just think you guys should know that if you're not hearing it. Anyway, I'll finish there, but thank you.
Can I hop in? I just, the kiosks that are going to eventually replace the meter heads are live and active downtown. So I just wanted to give kudos to Shannon and her team for rolling that out. We heard so many complaints about the meters. This was a creative way to squelch those complaints and the dissatisfaction of visitors.
And Big Bellies are out.
And yeah, when are they gonna be active?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to hear about.
Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't gotten that far. Oh, darn. Okay, Tom.
Maggie, can you send me and anyone else that wants it, or all of us, the 2 letters to the hearing examiner?
I sure can.
Yeah, okay,
They're also
thanks.
online on the public portal.
Oh, they
You
are?
have to
Okay.
click, so I think.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom.
A few brief updates. First, please let me know, tab 19, March Public Works Report. Any questions, just jump in. The disruption downtown is associated with the city's phase 3 sewer project, the sewer line project. Contractors are restoring the paver intersection at 9th and the alley. They're anticipated to be completed by the end of the week. So let's just put that disruption as. Yes, Big Belly trash cans are deployed. We are waiting for liners and training for. They're online. So we need trash liner bags, trash bags.
Are they gonna go on pads? Some are kind of stuck in the dirt. Are they positioned yet?
Good question. I assume that they are. We don't intend to pour anything, but they're not level. They will be moved.
Okay.
So the Big Valley contractors, they deployed them. We gave them a map basically.
Okay.
They put them here. So we can move them.
Some of them were still shrink wrap, so maybe they weren't quite sad.
Yeah,
They
they're
were
not.
just kind of like shit.
Yeah, those shrink wraps, make sure they don't get used.
Right.
That's right, yeah.
There's
So
been a
those
lot of
are-
community talk about them already.
Yeah,
Hopefully positive.
no.
Yeah.
Those aren't self-compacting, those
They
are.
are.
They are, okay.
Yeah, so they're with the compaction mechanism, they're technically 150 gallon capacity.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what are our old ones for comparison?
30.
Oh my.
Last update, Front Street Restroom Expansion Project is already scheduled and it's gonna rebid May 1st with bids due May 29th. So
Oh.
more to come.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, that concludes my report. Thank you.
I've got a couple of quick questions.
Oh, sure.
I can't remember what happened with the, winter burials.
No change, status quo.
No change.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the Barber short plat?
Oh, that was me. Barbara Short Plat was the little rental back here
Yeah,
from City Hall. He has a lot there. He's trying to subdivide into 2 lots. Last year it went through and got preliminary approval for 3 lots, including the little house.
Okay.
He did a boundary line adjustment just while I was gone. So I'm not well versed in
Okay.
what will happen, but now he's applying to subdivide that 1 lot into 2. It hasn't been approved yet.
Okay,
It's in process.
Yeah, my note, Councilor Waters, was just that I reviewed it from an access standpoint. For Public Works.
You what?
I reviewed it from an access standpoint.
okay. Stormwater complaint with city attorney.
It was a civil dispute between 2 private property owners.
Okay. Alpenglow bond cost estimate.
Yes, so Alpenglow phases 2 and 3, that's technically what it is. They, in order to get plat approval, they're able to bond for the public infrastructure improvements.
Okay,
So they put forth a bond for the sidewalk and all the utilities that are being, including the street.
and the Leavenworth Meadows developer meeting.
Oh, so so there was some back and forth on the road design and whether to move forward with the public works right away permit. So we met extensively with the Mulliner group just to iron out some details.
Okay, was that, the road that's gonna go all the way through?
Eventually.
Eventually, okay.
Yeah, Autumn Strasse.
Okay, and then one more question. Removed pin stakes from winter at this cemetery.
Oh, so,
Pin
yeah,
stakes.
Rick's crew, they put markers on the corner markers, they put taller stakes, so we
Okay.
can conduct winter
Okay.
burials, so we can find the plots.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we are done. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, let me see your hand. Yeah.
Was this a commercial?
Did not everyone raise their hand? Side cackle over there.
Oh,
Hey, you
me?
guys.
That came from him.
For the record, I need all of you to raise your hand if you want to adjourn.
Oh.
Most of you didn't.
No.
I did.
Okay, thank you.
There's always this.
Otherwise, they're gonna stay here.
A second to adjourn,
Nope.
it's just a joke.
Yeah.
Is that a real rule?
We've actually had meetings in the past where our council would vote down adjourning, and the auditors were like, what was wrong? What did they want to talk about? Nothing, we were just kidding.
Being funny.
I don't think that's very funny.
Thank you.
That's a spot, it does make its way.
It does, yeah, it really does. Young there has it.
Okay.
Scott's bringing the kiddie pool to the.
That's
what Travis said.
That's what Travis said. He was gonna set up a kiddie pool.
Okay.
No, they were like, can we just?
Yeah, they can come up with
An entrance with the mayor, and Get you the opportunity to grab. Everybody goes to the door. They were like, oh, no, no, we don't want the funding. We'll just hide it in the corner somewhere.
I mean, there would be room for a pool in the foyer, but with 7 tables, we're gonna run out of tables. So we're gonna put people in circular tables because we're just not gonna have it.
We don't have enough.